Chapter 340. Xiao Chun could feel every pulse of the saber. There seemed to be blood flowing in it. Of course, that was not real blood, but spiritual energy flowing in the saber vein. Without comprehending, listening to the sword and communicating with it, no matter how strong a person was, they would not be able to feel the pulse of the saber. As the essence slowly poured in, Xiao Chun could clearly see his purple essence flowing in the saber vein. With a thought, the saber lit up with a bright purple light. Withdraw. With another thought, the purple saber light immediately stopped. There was no separation at all. The circulation of the essence was faster than before. After dispelling the state of listening to the sword and communicating with it, the saber immediately turned snow white again. Just like that, Xiao Chun repeatedly used listening to the sword and communicating with it in the courtyard. Earlier in the dueling grounds, after Lu Riyue spoke to him, she immediately left. Xiao Chun felt that something was wrong. However, he did not know what was wrong. Hence, he did not intend to continue staying in the dueling grounds. Instead, he returned to the courtyard and tried to practice listening to the sword and communicating with it. He wanted to reach the stage of listening to the sword as soon as possible and enter the state of controlling the sword. That way, it would be of great help in battle. Xiao Chun practiced until dusk. When Bai returned, Xiao Chun stopped practicing. He saw that Bai's hair had been trimmed up very well. She had 2 small braids on her forehead. The black hair at the back was tied up in a complicated fashion. Finally, she used a green hair clip to hold it up. This brought out Bai's delicate and pretty temperament, completely covering up her charm. It looks like the Xiao Ming is really attentive. Bai smiled gently at the side. Elder brother Xiao Chun, are you practicing? Bai has to practice as well. After she is done, she can protect elder brother Xiao Chun. When Xiao Chun heard this, he thought it made sense. After spirit beasts took human forms, they could practice human martial techniques and cultivation techniques. It was necessary to teach her some martial techniques for self-defense. In the universe ring, there were many spirit weapons that Xiao Chun had looted from the Jiang clan's treasure trove. Xiao Chun took them out one by one. There were sabers, dual sabers, short swords, dual sabers, and countless swords. Choose a weapon first. What kind of weapon do you like? Then, I'll help you find a martial technique. Bai picked and chose among the large pile of soul weapons, and finally chose a sword that was 2 fingers wide and 5 feet long. This sword was called Skywater, and it was a high-grade, profound rank soul weapon. Brother Xiao Chun, I choose this one, Bai said with a smile. Xiao Chun frowned slightly. He hoped that Bai would choose a saber. That way, it would be easier to find the secret manuals. The huge Heavenly Saber Pavilion might lack many things, but it did not lack saber-related secret manuals. Furthermore, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion revered the saber. To a certain degree, swords were taboo. Even the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's pavilion master, who once shook the world, had only used a piece of wood to carve a sword for the sake of cultivating the sword in his later years. Suddenly, Xiao Chun's eyes lit up. He recalled that aside from the great dragon tiger fist and the dragon and tiger body sculpting art, the pavilion master had also left behind a heart-nourishing universe sword technique. This was a good chance for Bai to use. Xiao Chun rummaged around in the universe ring for a while before he finally found the heart-nourishing universe sword technique in a corner. Xiao Chun handed the secret manual over and said, "This secret manual is for you. Take it and read it first. If you have anything you don't understand, you can ask me." The heart-nourishing universe sword technique was a peak earth rank sword technique. In terms of might, it was not much weaker than Xiao Chun's Wukuei saber technique. After all, a martial technique that the pavilion master collected would not be something that an ordinary cultivator could find. Bai received it joyfully. She smiled and said, "Thank you, elder brother Xiao Chun. I will go and read it now. I will master it in 2 days. At that time, I will be able to protect elder brother Xiao Chun." As Xiao Chun watched Bai leave, he revealed a faint smile. This girl is too naive. Xiao Chun had seen a little of the heart-nourishing universe sword technique before. There was a total of 13 moves. Each move was harder to practice than the one before. The difficulty was comparable to the wukuei saber technique. Back then, Xiaoqun had spent 3 days and only managed to learn the first 3 moves of the wukuei saber technique. He was not even familiar with the 8th move. As for the 9th move, he had never thought of practicing it. How could I possibly learn all 13 moves of the heart-nourishing universe sword technique in 2 days? The days slowly went by. Xiaoqun practiced the wukuei saber technique in the morning. In the afternoon, he practiced listening to the sword and communicating with it. At night, he cultivated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 5th layer, preparing to break through to the 6th layer. Time passed very quickly. Aside from the necessary rest time to prevent his body from overworking itself, Xiaoqun spent the rest of his time cultivating. Xiaoqun worked so hard for the sake of the end-of-year inner disciple ranking competition in a month's time. If nothing unexpected happened, he would help Qingyan Peak obtain the first rank to repay Lu Ruyue's kindness. 6 days later, Xiaoqun was trying to practice the wukuei saber technique's 8th move. Wukuei opens heaven in the back mountains. However, he could not merge the state and the mysterious phenomenon. He could not reach great perfection. Elder brother Xiaoqun, I succeeded in practicing the heart-nourishing universe sword technique, Bai said excitedly as she rushed over to Xiaoqun. When Xiaoqun heard this, he was startled. He was incomparably astonished. That is impossible. I have never heard of anyone being able to learn a peak Earth-ranked martial technique within 6 days. Execute it once for me to see. Xiaoqun decided to verify its authenticity. Bai nodded her head heavily and drew the heavenly water sword. She brandished her sword, and her petite and exquisite figure moved quickly in the forest. In the forest, as Little White executed the heart-nourishing universe sword technique, the laws of heaven and earth seemed to become a little chaotic in an instant. As the sword moved, the surrounding trees actually moved strangely. However, these trees were still full of life. There were no strange phenomena. It was like the world spun around and space turned chaotic, resulting in such an effect. Xiaoqun's expression started to turn grave. He saw an indistinct blurry light at Bai's chest as the sword light danced. The shape of the light seemed to be the silhouette of a small sword. Sword heart. Xiaoqun blurted out in astonishment. Heaven was the sky, earth was the earth. After the heart-nourishing universe sword technique was executed, it would incorporate the heavens and earth into the sword technique. Every move of the heart-nourishing universe sword technique contained the heavenly Tao. When practiced to great perfection, it could even reverse the heavens and earth, truly changing the laws of heaven and earth. However, the crux of the heart-nourishing universe sword technique was the word nourishing the heart. This so-called nourishing the heart was to use the power of the heavens and earth to temper an unparalleled sword heart with an absolute sharpness. As far as Xiaoqun knew, although there were very few people who could practice the heart-nourishing universe sword technique to great perfection, there had been some sword sages in history. With one sword strike, they could make rivers flow backward, tear through space, and cause tall mountains to spin. However, aside from the person who created this sword technique, Xiaoqun had never heard of anyone else successfully tempering their sword heart. Bai executed the 13 moves of the heart-nourishing universe sword technique one by one. Sword chi surged in the forest, and countless fallen leaves flew everywhere. Bai sheathed his sword. The chaotic feeling of the forest spinning around him immediately vanished. He looked at Xiaoqun's silent appearance. I said somewhat nervously, Xiaoqun, is Bai stupid? I said I would learn it in 2 days, but in the end, I spent 6. Furthermore, it seems like I have not used it yet. Xiaoqun smiled bitterly to himself. If you are considered stupid, then how are the geniuses of the world supposed to live? This sword technique could only be considered a beginner. This was because the range that Bai could influence in the realm of heaven and earth was not very large. It could only be maintained within 10 meters of him. According to the records of the sword technique, when a martial saint practiced the heart-nourishing universe sword technique to great perfection, The range of influence could reach up to 500 meters. I was still far from that. Furthermore, he had not merged it with the state. This caused the might of the sword technique to be greatly reduced. However, to be able to use only 6 days to execute this sword technique and comprehend the sword heart, such a talent was simply horrifying. What I lacked now was only mastery and comprehension of his state. At that time, the might of the sword technique could be considered to have reached great perfection. Xiao Chun smiled gently and said, "No, it is already pretty good. However, you still have to continue working hard. You are still lacking some mastery." I smiled joyfully and said, "Really? In that case, when can I be as strong as elder brother Xiao Chun?" At that time, when there are bad people, there will be no need for elder brother Xiao Chun to make a move. I will help you chase them away. Xiao Chun smiled speechlessly. He thought to himself, why did I let Bai protect me? I should not have let Bai practice martial techniques. Actually, it was for her own sake. As for Bai's future, Xiao Chun already had a rough plan in his heart. However, he could not tell her about it for now. Go back first. Don't think too much. Remember not to let others see you practicing the sword technique, Xiao Chun said. After all, practicing the sword technique in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was a taboo. Bai nodded and walked back in high spirits. She was clearly in high spirits. Seeing Bai leave, Xiao Chun withdrew his gaze and said indifferently, Bai is already so powerful. I have to work even harder. I cannot let her leave me behind. I have to completely grasp Wu Kuei opens heaven. 3 days later, Lu Suifeng came to Xiao Chun's courtyard and told him a piece of shocking news. When Xiao Chun heard the news, he felt very suspicious. He asked, "You said that the end-of-year inner disciple ranking war schedule for the middle of next month has been delayed? Why is it like this?" Lu Suifeng was confused as well. "I am not sure either. The people from the Elders' Assembly did not say the exact reason. The end-of-year inner disciple ranking war has been a tradition of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion since it was founded. In the past 10,000 years, unless something major happened, I have never heard of the ranking war being delayed. The purpose of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's annual Inner Disciple ranking war was not just to check the cultivation results of the Inner Disciples. It was also to maintain a healthy competition among the Inner Disciples. The most important thing was that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would make use of this opportunity to display the strength of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to the world. It would ensure its reputation as the top sect in the Xia province. Every year, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would send out invitations to the various powers and youths of the Xia province. Even the officials would be invited. The purpose of this was to display the strength of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and protect its reputation. If they suddenly delayed the end-of-year Inner Disciple ranking war, it would cause others to suspect that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion did not have any worthy Inner Disciples. That was why they delayed it. Chapter 341. All these unfavorable events were a huge blow to the reputation of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Unless they had no other choice, they would not postpone the competition. Lu Suifeng continued. This matter is very strange. Until now, there are no leads. Furthermore, even the outer disciple competition was postponed. This is very confusing. Xiao Chun thought for a while and said, there is no need to care about it. It is only postponed, not canceled. That's right. Why have I not seen elder sister Ryue recently? Lu Suifeng hesitated for a while before saying, actually, the last time she used the strengthened ancient absolute saber formation, her essence was greatly injured. She will not be able to cultivate for half a year. Recently, she has been consuming spirit herbs to nourish herself. Otherwise, the losses would be even greater. Xiao Chun was greatly startled. He had felt that something was wrong the last time. It turned out to be so serious. Naturally, Xiao Chun knew the severity of the matter. He did not expect Lu Ryue to make such a huge sacrifice for him. Why did you not tell me earlier? Xiao Chun said with some blame. If he had known there would be such serious consequences, Xiao Chun would not have accepted it. Lu Suifeng smiled helplessly. I wanted to tell you, but my sister did not let me. Furthermore, even if I told you, would you still accept this kindness? Xiao Chun shook his head and wanted to get up to look for Lu Ruyue. Lu Suifeng quickly stopped him and said, "Don't go. My sister is very headstrong. Since she does not want you to know, just pretend that you do not know." Xiao Chen had no choice but to sit back down. The two of them chatted for a while before Lu Suifeng got up and took his leave. Xiao Chun did not feel anything about the inner disciple ranking competition being postponed. As long as it was not canceled, it was fine. He was not in a rush to leave Qingyun Peak anyway. On the other hand, Lu Riyue had wasted half a year for him. This made him feel uneasy. If he still could not guess what Lu Riyue was thinking, he would be a fool. Everyone had emotions and desires. No one could truly transcend time. How could one pretend to be relaxed in a mortal world? That night, Xiao Chun stopped cultivating. He leaped up and landed on a big tree outside Lu Riyue's courtyard. The bright moonlight shone on the ground. Lu Riyue was in the courtyard, practicing her saber techniques as usual. Saber lights filled the place, and energy surged. Now that Lu Riyue was a martial king, she could see that her saber chi was much purer than before. As the saber chi flew through the air, even the air seemed to be sliced apart, forming blurry ripples. Hu chi! Without any warning, a strand of resplendent saber chi suddenly flew towards the tree where Xiao Chun was. It covered the distance of 500 meters in an instant. With a cracking sound, the thick tree was immediately cut in half, revealing Xiao Chun, who was hiding behind the tree. Lu Riyue flew over and saw that it was Xiao Chun hiding behind the tree. She heaved a sigh of relief and sheathed her saber. She asked, "Yi Chun, why are you hiding behind the tree?" Xiao Chun felt extremely embarrassed, and his delicate face immediately flushed red. His usual calmness had long since been lost somewhere. There was nothing more embarrassing than being caught peeping at someone. Xiao Chun stood on the broken tree and stammered for a long time before saying, "Indeed, why am I hiding here? This question is really strange." Lu Riyue looked at the embarrassed Xiao Chun and found it very funny. She smiled and said, "Actually, this tree has a heavenly spiritual energy. When one stands on it, one can calm down. It is a good place to comprehend bottlenecks. Yi Chun, you are comprehending a martial technique, right?" Xiao Chun slowly calmed down and smiled. "And that's right. I did not expect Riyue to know this secret as well. This tree is indeed very useful. I nearly broke through my bottleneck." Lu Riyue's flirtatious face revealed a mischievous smile. She said seriously, "In that case, I have to apologize to you. I should not have interrupted you earlier and even broken this spiritual tree. I am truly sorry." Lu Riyue's tone caused Xiao Chen's flustered heart to calm down. He smiled faintly and said, "It's fine. The tree was broken, and the spiritual energy leaked out. It is a good opportunity to break through my bottleneck. However, this tree will be useless in the future." Lu Riyue nodded and said, "In that case, you should properly comprehend your bottleneck. I will come back tomorrow morning to take a look." Xiao Chan sweated profusely in his heart. This meant that he had to stand on this broken tree for an entire night. This tree did not really have spiritual energy. Even if he stood on it without moving, he would feel uncomfortable. Hu chi! Xiao Chun leaped down from the broken tree and landed gently in front of Lu Riyue. Lu Riyue nodded and smiled. "Young hero Yi, why are you not continuing to comprehend your bottleneck?" Xiao Chun smiled embarrassedly. "Riyue, can you stop laughing at me?" Lu Riyue burst out laughing and said, "All right, I won't laugh at you anymore. Go in then. Why are you looking for me?" After they sat down in Lu Riyue's courtyard, Xiao Chun told her about what Lu Suifeng had told him. He told her about the matter of the inner disciple ranking competition being delayed. Lu Riyue said softly, "I know about this. There is no special reason for anyone to hold the inner disciple ranking competition. The manpower and resources required are huge. It would require the entire sect to do so. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion is unable to hold two grand events in such a short period of time." Xiao Chun felt suspicious and asked, "Are you saying that there is something even grander than the inner disciple ranking competition? What is it?" Lu Riyue nodded and said, This matter is a secret for now. However, there is no problem telling you. Lung Liusu came out of closed-door cultivation. She is already a peak inferior grade martial king. Xiao Chun was slightly stunned before he reacted. Lung Liusu was only 17 years old, and she was already a peak inferior grade martial king. Aside from the word demonic, there was no other way to describe her talent. This was a realm that ordinary people could not reach in their lifetime. Unexpectedly, she did it at the age of 17. Furthermore, she was not just a martial king, but a peak inferior grade martial king. The earlier a person became a martial king, the higher their future achievements would be. This was something that had already been proven. Back then, the Thunder King also became a martial king at the age of 17. At the age of 20, he became a martial monarch. At the age of 30, he saw through life and death and became a martial sage. At the age of 40, he became a martial emperor, ruling over the world. There were many experts in history. All of them had different characteristics. However, they all had one thing in common. They all became martial kings before the age of 20. If a cultivator could not become a martial king before the age of 25, their future achievements would be limited to that of a martial king. Back then, Muron Chong had told Xiao Chun some things about Lung Liusu. He said that when she came out of closed-door cultivation, she would shock the world. It looked like it was true. The bloodline of the Saber Emperor was truly shocking. Lu Ryue continued. The first elder has already sent people to inform the three holy masters. He wants to make use of this opportunity to get the people from the three holy masters to come and help the Heavenly Saber Pavilion seal the spatial crack. The people from the three holy masters will come as well. Xiao Chen finally understood why the end-of-year inner disciple ranking competition was delayed. If the three holy masters really came, the inner disciple ranking competition would be insignificant. The three holy masters transcended the world. The legends of the three holy masters were spread all over the Tianwu continent. In the eyes of the people, they were an untouchable legend. They had existed since the ancient era. After tens of thousands of years, their strength was unfathomable. They were the last hope of the Tianwu continent. There were several known times in history, and in the end, it was always the three holy lands who led the people to repel the demon race, continuing the seed of humanity. The arrival of the three holy masters would definitely shock the entire Great Qi nation. At that time, all the noble clans and sects in the Great Qi nation would come to pay their respects. If the geniuses of the various clans caught the eyes of the three holy masters, they would be very lucky. With the Holy Land taking care of them, their status would automatically rise. The three holy lands, Phoenix's Passion Palace, White Emperor City, and Divine Martial Gate. Xiao Chen did not know why, but he instinctively felt a little repulsed by them. Furthermore, he was a transmigrator. He did not have any intention of worshipping them, so he was not interested. However, the opportunity to see the strength of the people from the Holy Lands piqued Xiao Chen's interest. He wanted to see how strong a holy soul cultivator with an unbroken inheritance was. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen said, "Will the three holy masters come? If they come, which holy land will they go to? Phoenix's Passion Palace, White Emperor City, or Divine Martial Gate?" Lu Ryue replied, "It is very likely that they will come. The three holy masters have been searching for geniuses all over the continent. With Lung Liusu's talent, she will definitely attract them. As for which holy land, I am not sure." After this topic ended, the two of them chatted for a long time. There were several times when Xiao Chun could not help but ask about her wasting half a year. However, he resisted in the end. Since Lu Ryue was not willing to talk about it, he would just bury this topic in his heart and keep it to himself. As the night grew darker, Xiao Chun stood up and took his leave. He said, "I will go back first. No matter what, I will definitely obtain the top rank of the intersect disciple rankings for Qinyan Peak." Lu Ryue smiled gently and said, "In that case, I thank you for your promise in advance. However, if you want to come and see me in the future, just come in directly. Although there are many trees here, not all of them are filled with spiritual energy." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "There's no need. I have already passed my bottleneck. To me, trees are no longer important. After the two of them spoke, they looked at each other and smiled gently. There was no need for words. To Xiao Chun, trees were indeed no longer important. Lu Riyue had not only chopped down a tree outside the courtyard, she had also chopped down a barrier in Xiao Chen's heart. Since he liked her in his heart, then he should step forward openly. There was no need to suppress his feelings and think of all the worries. There was no need to be conflicted over whether to meet her or not. Regardless of whether he left Qingyun Peak or not, the person he loved was here. There was a worry in his heart. No matter where she went, they would know each other. After walking out of Lu Riyue's courtyard, Xiao Chan felt as though a huge stone had been lifted from his heart. He felt very comfortable. Although the two of them did not say it out loud, there was a kind of silent, tacit understanding between them. They both knew each other's intentions. Xiao Chan slowly walked on the mountain path in the forest. Under the moonlight, he looked up and revealed a faint smile on his face. In the following days, aside from cultivating diligently every day, Xiao Chen would take some time out to come to Lu Riyue's courtyard at night. The two of them chatted about everything under the sun. There was nothing they did not talk about. They chatted happily. However, they mostly talked about their understanding of the martial way. Lu Riyue's accumulations as a martial saint were deep. This was especially so with her experience of breaking through to Martial King twice. She told Xiao Chun everything he needed to pay attention to when breaking through. Chapter 342. Advancing from Martial Saint to Martial King was a huge hurdle for early-stage cultivators. Once one crossed it, one would be able to enjoy the treatment of an expert anywhere in the Great Qi Nation. The earlier one crossed it, the higher one's future accomplishments would be. Xiao Chen also told Lu Riyue about his comprehension of states, Xiao Chen's understanding of states. Now, aside from some of the older generation experts, no one in the younger generation could compare to him in the Great Qi Nation. This allowed Lu Riyue to benefit a lot from it. When they got excited, it was hard to avoid arguments. The two of them would compare notes with each other, perfecting their understandings through actual combat. This kind of exchange was much more useful than Xiao Chen's usual thinking. After a week, Xiao Chun actually managed to completely comprehend the Wukuei opens heaven, which he had been unable to perfect in the past. The substantial gains in his cultivation allowed Xiao Chun to immerse himself in this kind of exchange. He would go to Lu Riyue's courtyard almost every night. On this particular day, as the two of them were chatting happily, there was a sudden explosion in the sky thousands of meters above the heavenly saber pavilion. In the dark night, 7 huge meteors descended from the sky above Qingyun Peak. As they descended, they destroyed the 81 restrictions that the heavenly saber pavilion laid in the sky. Ear-piercing alarms reverberated throughout the entire Lingyun mountain range. It was as though there was an emergency. It rang out continuously. Who? Occasionally, figures would soar into the sky from the 7 main peaks of the heavenly saber pavilion. A strong aura reverberated in the surroundings. Their fighting spirits soared, causing people to tremble in fear. The expressions of Xiao Chun and Lu Riyue changed. Unexpectedly, someone dared to barge into the heavenly saber pavilion so brazenly. Lu Riyue had a grave expression as she looked at the summit of Qingyun Peak. She said, "Neither of us should act rashly. A battle of this level is not something we can participate in." Even without Lu Riyue saying anything, Xiao Chun could feel that horrifying pressure. The 7 meteors contained the aura of a martial monarch. Just thinking about it caused one to tremble in fear. There were only 10 known martial monarchs in the entire Great Qi Nation. However, at this moment, 7 martial monarchs arrived at the heavenly saber pavilion. The strength of one martial monarch could easily destroy a city. With 7 martial monarchs, they would be able to defeat an army of 1,000,000. Martial monarch, the monarch of martial arts, was not a title that could be casually given. Even in the Great Qi Nation, which had many spirit veins, a martial monarch was considered an expert. Furthermore, in the Great Qi Nation, there had been no news of a martial sage appearing in the past 1,000 years. Martial monarchs were already the peak combat power. If any sect or clan had a martial monarch, they would immediately become a first-rate faction. As for the figures that soared into the sky from the 7 main peaks, they were all superior-grade martial kings. Given Xiao Qian's cultivation, if he rushed up, the shock waves of the battle could crush him to pieces. Xiao Qian did not know how many martial monarchs the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had. With this sudden crisis, he could clearly see the trump cards of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Qian looked at the sky and asked doubtfully, "Why are these people here?" Lu Rue muttered, "Divine weapon." Boom! The 7 meteors in the sky pierced through the restrictions of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. A fiery light spread out, and countless sparks quickly shot into the sky. Bang! 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 The sparks fell like rain, covering nearly half of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. There were intense explosions on the ground. Surging shockwaves spread out, and dust filled the air. Countless buildings were destroyed, turning into rubble. Many cultivators were struck by the sparks. Before they could react, they were blasted to pieces, dying without a complete corpse. The entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion was in chaos. Many places were set on fire, and the fire immediately spread. Sparks flew towards Lu Ruyue's courtyard. When they saw the energy contained in the sparks, the two of them did not dare to clash head-on. They executed their movement techniques and dodged quickly. In the next moment, the previously perfectly fine courtyard was blasted beyond recognition. The shockwaves carried countless rocks over. The two of them turned around and sent out a few sharp saber chi, reducing the flying shockwaves and rocks to dust. After the sparks scattered, 7 middle-aged men in azure robes appeared before the crowd. 9 blue dragons were embroidered on their robes. The 7 of them emitted an overwhelming aura. Even Xiao Qian, who was a kilometer underground, felt a huge pressure. Many of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples on the ground who were looking up could not withstand this pressure. They fell to the ground, not even having the strength to get up. The aura of the 7 martial monarchs was equal to that of a martial sage. It could even stop the flow of a river. What more these martial saint cultivators? Who dares barge into my Heavenly Saber Pavilion? Are you reckless? Hundreds of martial kings from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion flew over. The person leading them did not show any fear when facing the 7 martial monarchs. Are you even worthy of speaking to us? One of the 7 green-robed martial monarchs snorted coldly and pointed. A ripple appeared in the air. After a while, it turned into a whirlpool and surged forward. Bang! The person who spoke was struck by the whirlpool and immediately vomited a mouthful of blood. He cried out miserably as he fell from the sky. A bona fide peak martial king could not even retaliate before a martial monarch. He was defeated with just a finger. This was truly frightening. When Xiao Qian felt the intense fluctuations in space, he said indifferently, "This is the power of space." Martial monarchs and martial kings are simply not on the same level. All of you withdraw. The first elder, Jiangqi, led the peak masters of the other peaks and finally arrived. However, Xiao Qian did not see Song Quebec. However, when he thought about it, it made sense. Song Ke only had one arm now. He was no longer a peak martial king. The hundreds of martial kings that had gathered earlier quickly retreated to the side and watched from a distance. Even they could not participate in this battle. When Jiangqi saw the attire of the 7, his expression turned grave. He said slowly, "My Heavenly Saber Pavilion does not seem to have any grudges with you. Why are you here at my Heavenly Saber Pavilion?" The leader of the 7 took a few steps forward in the air and said, "We are the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's 7 sage envoys under the Dragon King. I am Long Tuesday. We are here to borrow something from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion." Jiangqi had already guessed what they were here for. However, he still said coldly, "Is this the attitude you have when you want to borrow something? Big brother, don't bother speaking nonsense with him. They're just a bunch of half-step martial monarchs. Why bother with them? Just kill them. What is the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? How dare they compare themselves to our Divine Dragon Palace?" The person who made a move earlier said ruthlessly as a vicious look flashed in his eyes. Long Tu smiled gently and ignored this person's words. He looked at Jiang Qi and said, "My apologies. My seventh brother's temper has always been bad." His words were a little harsh. "I'm sorry. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion has too many restrictions. We had no choice but to forcefully break through. As long as you are willing to lend us the item, I am willing to compensate the Heavenly Saber Pavilion tenfold for all the losses." Jiang Qi said sullenly, "If you want to borrow the divine weapon, you can scram now. I will only say this once. If you leave now, I can pretend nothing happened. Don't think that you can do whatever you want in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion just because you are an inferior grade martial monarch." When Long Tu heard this, his expression turned cold. He said, "Since ancient times, the divine weapon belongs to those who are capable. Today, my Dragon King has taken a liking to this divine weapon. I will say this only once. Obediently hand over the divine weapon. Otherwise, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's 10,000 years of foundation will be destroyed." The seventh of the Divine Dragon Palace's 7 sage envoys smiled coldly and said, "Just a few half-step martial monarchs, and you dare to say that you can keep us here? Do you not know how the word death is written? Old man, I will start with you." Boom! Just as he was about to make his move, 7 scarlet warships suddenly flew over from all directions. The scarlet flags on the bow of the warships fluttered in the night sky. The scarlet flags were as beautiful as fresh blood. Even the night could not hide them. Instead, the dark night made the scarlet flags look even more bewitching. A person stood under each of the flags. They wore scarlet battle armor and had a scarlet cape draped over their shoulders. A scarlet bloodsucker saber hung at their waists. They did not hide their killing chi at all. 7 waves of killing chi soared into the sky and merged together, forming a vast sea. At some point in time, the dark clouds above had been dyed scarlet like blood. The terrifying, murderous aura was almost tangible. From time to time, the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves could be heard coming from the blood clouds. The people from the Divine Saber camp had arrived. For the first time, the expressions of the 7 people from the Divine Dragon Palace turned grave. Xiao! Xiao! The figures on the bow of the warships turned into 7 beams of scarlet light and arrived behind the first elder, Jiang Qi, at lightning speed. The Divine Saber camp's first commander, Shimaning, nodded slightly to Jiang Qi. He said softly, "The Divine Saber camp's Shimaning arrived late and caused the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to suffer losses." Jiang Qi said indifferently, "It does not matter. It is good that you are here." When Long Tu saw the horrifying, baleful aura of the 7 people, he was astonished. So, there are cultivators who use killing to prove their Tao. Could it be that they would cause others to feel fear? However, only 2 of them were martial monarchs. The other 5 were only half-step martial monarchs, so there was nothing to fear. Long Tu said sullenly, "The 6 of you, go and get the divine weapons. I will block them." The other 6 people were very confident in Long Tu's strength. They did not hesitate and immediately headed for the summit of Qinyan Peak. Jiang Qi's expression turned grave as he said anxiously, "Block them." The many martial kings who were watching from the side immediately rushed forward and charged at the 6 people. All sorts of high-ranked martial techniques gave off resplendent lights in the sky, surging forward. The 6 people each sent out a palm strike, and an azure flood dragon appeared. The 6 flood dragons roared ferociously and crushed all the strong martial techniques flying at them into the air. After that, the blue dragon's might did not decrease. As it moved, it swept away dozens of martial kings. Then, it flew into the distance like a cannonball. Boom! The few martial kings were knocked back 2,000 meters. Their bodies crashed into a mountain peak, and there were a few loud sounds. The mountain peak immediately collapsed. The 6 of them only used one move to easily knock back dozens of superior-grade martial kings. After they withdrew their attacks, the blue dragon roared and returned to their bodies. So. 7 scarlet warships quickly flew towards the 6 people. 100 Divine Saber Camp elite disciples jumped off the warships and formed a 3-dimensional formation in the air. At the same time, they drew their bloodsucker sabers and roared ferociously. All their killing chi merged into one. Chapter 343. As the 6 martial monarchs moved in the formation, they immediately felt a huge pressure. Even though they had killed countless people in their lives, they still felt fear in their hearts. Furthermore, the formation of these 100 divine saber camp disciples seemed to follow some sort of natural law, suppressing the strength of the 6 martial monarchs. The 6 martial monarchs charged around in the formation. Their horrifying strength was unstoppable. However, they strangely discovered that even though they were moving forward, they were moving in circles. They were unable to break through the encirclement of these 100 martial monarchs. Long Tu took a glance and ignored the situation. With the strength of the 6 of them, it was only a matter of time before they broke through this formation. The true threat came from the 7 people before them, especially the 2 inferior-grade martial monarchs. They were the Divine Saber Camp's deputy commander, Shi Mining, and Juyen. Jiang Qi and the others had already retreated far away. With their strength as half-step martial monarchs, they could barely participate in this battle. However, the Divine Saber Camp was very particular about cooperation. What they learned was completely different from what they learned. They could not participate in the battle at all. They could only watch from the sidelines, just in case. Kill. The 7 of them attacked at the same time. The bloodsucker sabers in their hands released a scarlet light. Boundless scarlet clouds started churning in the sky. A sinister wind blew, and a baleful aura pressed down. Long Tu flipped his palm, and a purple spear appeared in his hand. He swung it gently, and ripples appeared in the air. An azure flood dragon coiled around the spear. The flood dragon opened its mouth and roared ferociously. It swung the spear 4 times in the air and blocked all the attacks of the 7. Hu-chi! Hu-chi! The weapons clashed, and a horrifying energy spread out. Black cracks appeared in space. The few of them casually waved their hands and tore space apart. The black cracks extended for several kilometers before stopping. Everywhere the cracks passed, mountains were chopped in half. From the sky, it looked like a biscuit that was bitten off by a dog. The few of them fought in the air faster and faster. Xiao Qian's eyes could not keep up with their speed. He could only hear deafening roars. Bang! On the battlefield, a streak of blood-red light was sent flying backward. A fist-sized hole appeared on the forehead of a Divine Saber Camp cultivator. He had been stabbed to death by Long Tu's spear. A moment later, cracks spread from his wounds, and his body was quickly torn into pieces. Again, the Divine Saber Camp is only SOSO. Lonta raised his head to the sky and laughed heartily. As his voice rang out, another spear swept out. The purple spear seemed to have come to life. It turned into a blue dragon and swept out wildly. A Divine Saber Camp disciple sent out a scarlet light that connected heaven and earth, trying to block this horrifying attack. Before the azure flood dragon even got close, it let out a furious roar that contained boundless holy might, shaking this person to the point where he felt dizzy and his legs went weak. Bang! In the next moment, the green flood dragon turned back into a hard purple spear. A dot of purple light appeared on the tip of the spear. Long Tu tilted his body slightly and pushed his hand forward, shattering the blood-colored light with lightning speed. This person quickly turned around and retreated. His speed was comparable to that of scarlet lightning. Long Tu snorted coldly and swung his spear forward. His right hand grasped the tip of the spear. The range of the attack immediately increased significantly. With a horizontal swing, the spear struck this person's chest. This person vomited a mouthful of blood and flew back. He did not have time to control his direction and crashed into the spreading spatial cracks. This person could not resist at all and was cut into pieces by the spatial cracks. At the same time, the sharp attacks of the other 5 people filled the sky with scarlet light. The horrifying killing moves containing the state of massacre flew at Long Tu. Soaring dragon. Long Tu pulled back a spear and shouted. Suddenly, 9 azure flood dragons flew out of his body. As the 9 dragons soared, A supreme will of wind was contained in the azure flood dragons. Bang! 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 The flood dragon roared furiously, and the will of wind sprayed out, stirring up a gale and blowing away the torrential state of massacre. No matter how strong the state of massacre was, it was just a state in the end. It was not a match for a higher-leveled state unless the people of the Divine Saber camp comprehended the state of massacre. As the 9 dragons soared, the berserk energy contained a power that could destroy heaven and earth. It forced everyone back. This was especially so since the state was broken. The might of the killing move was greatly reduced. There was no rebound at all. Long Tu laughed maniacally, and the 9 dragons returned to his body. His figure flashed, and he arrived before a Divine Saber camp cultivator. He thrust his spear forward, and a black hole appeared in the air. The power of this spear was very berserk. It directly pierced through space. The supreme will of wind started to spread out from the tip of the spear. A fist-sized black hole immediately spread out. Long Tu's figure flashed, and he entered the spatial crack. In the next moment, a crack appeared in front of the retreating cultivator. A spear carrying an unparalleled force suddenly appeared from the void and pierced toward the cultivator's forehead. This spear came out of nowhere without any warning. There was no way to defend against it. It was a sure hit attack. Dang! Just as the spear was about to pierce through the cultivator's forehead, a scarlet saber flashed from the side. The saber struck the tip of the spear. However, the will of wind on the tip of the spear prevented it from moving at all. Shimin Ying's chaotic and unfocused eyes suddenly focused. 2 crimson dots appeared in his eyes, making him look extremely strange. The horrifying state of massacre on the saber started to increase rapidly. Finally, it exploded and formed a strand of will of massacre. Boom! The horrifying spear was finally knocked away. That cultivator took advantage of this opportunity to quickly retreat. Long Tu grasped the handle of his spear and slowly emerged from the spatial crack. He looked at Shimin and smiled faintly. Not bad. You actually managed to evolve the state of massacre into the will of massacre. However, it is just a strand. Let's see how you're going to block my will of wind. Huh! Long Tu's spear swept out, and a purple light burst out from the tip. Strands of purple wind blades appeared and tore cracks in space. Everywhere the wind blades passed, the cracks extended continuously. The pitch-black cracks were like a flower blooming, a horrifying flower filled with the power of death. Shimin Ying had a grave expression. He did not say anything. His scarlet pupils released a strange light. He brandished his saber and knocked back the purple wind blades. Countless wind blades were sent flying, creating long black spatial cracks in the air. Many of the idle martial kings in the air could not dodge in time and were immediately cut in half by the spatial cracks. The power of the spatial cracks was not something an ordinary martial king could deal with. However, the force of the wind blades was too strong. Every time he knocked back a strand, Shimin Ying immediately moved back 100 meters. His complexion also turned increasingly pale. When the Divine Saber Camp's deputy commander Zhuyan saw that Shimin Ying was in a dangerous situation, he quickly flew over and worked together to knock back the scarlet wind blades. Long Tu laughed loudly, and a purple flood dragon appeared on his spear. He charged at the 2 of them quickly before he ignored them. Long Tu shifted his gaze to the other 3 half-step martial monarchs of the Divine Saber Camp. He casually tore, and a spatial crack appeared. Then his figure flashed out. Bang! 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 Long Tu executed the shocking spear strike that contained the will of berserk wind 3 times in a row. The 3 half-step martial monarchs had condensed their state of massacre to its limits. However, there was a natural difference between states and wills. They could not move the spear at all. Furthermore, Long Tu hid himself in the spatial crack. No matter where he hid, he would always appear beside them. Be it behind, to the left, to the right, or even to the front, he would thrust his spear at them. Bloody holes appeared in the heads of the 3 half-step martial monarchs with this shocking spear strike. They could not be any more dead. At this moment, Shimin Ying and Zhuyan were still fighting against the soaring green flood dragon. The flood dragon was 100 meters long, and its green scales were crisscrossed. Both of its eyes flashed with spiritual light, as if it was a real flood dragon. The flood dragon roared ferociously as it wantonly flew in the air. As its dragon claws tore, it left thin cracks in space. Occasionally, it would spit out strands of azure dragon flame. Shimin Ing and Juyin turned into two beams of scarlet light. As they dodged the flood dragon's attacks, they left wounds on its body. When the saber technique containing the state of massacre struck the flood dragon, the wounds would not heal. The flood dragon's figure slowly faded. It would not be able to last much longer. After Long Tu dealt with the 3 half-step martial monarchs, he looked around and saw that the azure flood dragon was about to run out of energy. His expression did not change as he swung his spear through the air. A purple light gathered at the tip of the spear, and a long spatial crack appeared. Long Tu turned around and disappeared into the night sky. Shimin Ing and Juyin, who had dealt with the azure flood dragon, did not have time to catch their breaths. Suddenly, a crack appeared above their heads. A purple spear containing a strong will of wind exploded in the air, descending towards the two of them. Dang! Shimin Ing and Juyin quickly moved to the side. They crossed their scarlet sabers in the air and blocked the spear strike that could split mountains. Long Tu's figure emerged from the spatial crack. He laughed loudly and shouted, "You are like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You think you can block it? Scram!" Long Tu's right hand, which was holding the spear, exerted some force. A purple light spread out from the tip of the spear. Instantly, the flood dragon carved on the spear glowed brightly. The will of wind became even more berserk. Bang! Shimin Ing and Juyin both vomited a mouthful of blood. The bloodsucker sabers in their hands could not withstand the force. They flew out of their hands and fell to the ground. Scram! With a roar, Long Tu's figure rapidly leaped forward. The space beneath his feet was like flat ground. Every step he took left a purple footprint in the air. Long Tu brandished his spear and struck Shimin Ing, Juyin, and Juyan's chest. Their bodies flew backward and crashed into a mountain a kilometer away, destroying half of it. When Xiao Chun saw all this, horror filled his eyes. At the same time, he was filled with doubt. They were all martial monarchs, but why was Long Tu able to beat the other martial monarchs to the point where they could not retaliate? Chapter 344. With a casual move, he could easily tear space apart. When his spear swept out, there was no way to block it. As for those half-step martial monarchs, they were as simple as slaughtering dogs. One spear for one, without any hesitation. Suddenly, a light flashed in Xiao Chen's mind. He remembered what Long Tu said. This was because of the will. It was just like how a martial saint who comprehended a state could easily kill a martial saint who had not comprehended a state. To a martial monarch, the state could no longer keep up with the development of their strength. Only a higher level could bring out the might of a martial monarch. Lu Riyue's eyes filled with anxiety. Occasionally, she would look at the summit of Qingyun Peak. The summit was currently very calm. It was very peaceful. First Elder, should we call out those Supreme Elders? This Long Tu's will of wind has clearly reached great perfection. Shimin Ing and Juyin are not a match for him. Indeed, if we still do not call out those Supreme Elders, there will be no chance to turn the situation around. The Peak Masters of the Main Peaks said anxiously. Jiang Qi's expression turned grave. He ignored the words of these people. After a while, he shook his head and said, "The Divine Saber Camp still has not used their trump card. The enemies that the Supreme Elder wants to deal with are not these people. Let's wait and see." Boom! 2 scarlet lights shot up from the ground. Shimin Ing and Juyin started fighting again. So, the two of them stretched out their hands, and the bloodsucker sabers immediately returned to their hands. The killing chi of the two of them spread out continuously. Their red cloaks fluttered in the air. The blood on their lips had not dried yet, but their faces were extremely pale. Long Tu looked at the two of them and smiled coldly. "You are at the end of the road, yet you are still putting on an act. Die." Xiao Chun swung his spear in the air and disappeared into thin air again. appearing very mysterious. Peerless blood shadow. Shimin Ing and Juyin shouted, and the sabers in their hands moved in an arc. A scarlet crescent moon appeared on the tip of their sabers. Xiaoqian's gaze turned grave as he looked carefully. Back then, Muron Chang's peerless lunar shadow was born from this peerless blood shadow. Now that he had executed the original martial technique, its might should not be weak. However, it was hard to say whether it would be able to injure Long. Tuesday Long, too, was in the void, and there was no way to track him. After executing the move, their pale faces turned even paler, without the slightest hint of blood. The two blood-colored crescent moons whistled through the air, but they disappeared in a flash and actually entered the void. Pucci. In the void, there was a violent explosion. A pitch-black hole was torn open, and a red light shone out. Bang! The instant the red light shone, the spatial crack rapidly expanded. A red full moon broke through the space and leaped out. In an instant, the scarlet light illuminated the entire Lingyun mountain range. The cultivators with better vision could see an azure figure moving quickly in the black hole in the sky. If they looked carefully, they would discover a trace of blood leaking out of the corner of his mouth. Xiao Chan exclaimed in shock, "Peerless blood shadow." Unexpectedly, not only did it stop Long Tu's attack, but it even injured him. The black hole quickly closed. The instant it completely closed, a resplendent purple light appeared out of nowhere in the sky. Long Tu was about to break through space and come out. Shimaning and Zhuiyan's gazes were like lightning. The instant the purple light appeared, they quickly formed hand seals. Strands of perception locked onto each other. Long Tu's figure had just appeared when the scarlet full moon in the sky charged at him with a startling state of massacre. The speed of the full moon reached its peak. Everywhere it passed, space turned blurry and ripples appeared. Bang! Long Tu did not have any chance to dodge. His face filled with shock. The tip of his spear shone brightly as he thrust it forward, wanting to shatter this scarlet moon. However, the energy contained within this full moon was simply too vast. The two of them exhausted their essence and forcefully condensed their states into strands of will, infusing them into the full moon. Such a secret technique that forcefully raised one state would have severe side effects on the body. However, at this moment, they could not care so much. Unexpectedly, Long Tu's successful will of wind could not block this move. His body was instantly covered by the scarlet moon as he crashed heavily into the ground. Rumble! A 1,000-meter-wide pit immediately appeared at the foot of Qingyun Peak. Dust flew into the air and a huge force spread out. The entire Qingyun Peak started to shake violently. It was easy to imagine how terrifying this power was to be able to shake an entire mountain. Shimin Ying's complexion paled. He could not help but vomit another mouthful of blood. He ignored his injuries and said coldly, "Attack." Right after he spoke, the 7 scarlet warships in the sky released a scarlet pillar of light that soared into the sky, connecting with the scarlet clouds in the sky. The trump card of the Divine Saber Camp was finally going to be revealed. The endless red clouds began to tumble and surge, becoming brighter and brighter, as if blood was flowing through them. In an instant, a horrifying state of massacre spread throughout the entire Lingyun mountain range. It caused all the cultivators present to tremble. At the same time, the martial kings of the various noble clans in the Shiha province all felt this aura. They all soared into the sky and looked at the boundless scarlet clouds in the direction of the heavenly saber pavilion. Their expressions all changed. What's going on? The Divine Saber Camp's heavenly profound blood-slaughtering formation has been executed. What's happening in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? I have not seen the Divine Saber Camp for hundreds of years. Now, they're making a move. What is going on? Many figures gathered in the sky. They could not resist the curiosity in their hearts as they quickly flew towards the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The Great Qin Nation's imperial capital, where everyone was preparing to sleep in the middle of the night, suddenly discovered 10 huge golden warships had appeared in the sky at an unknown time. They were flying quickly to the west. A golden flag fluttered on the bow of the warships. There were 9 golden dragons embroidered on the flag, and the word Qin was written in the center. Among the 10 warships, there was one that was especially huge. It was 1,000 meters long and 100 meters wide. Golden talisman scripts flickered around the hull of the warship. There was a person standing on the bow of the warship. He was 7 meters tall and looked very energetic. His aura was like a rainbow as he soared into the sky. The light he gave off was so dazzling that it seemed like it lit up the night sky. This was the leader of the Imperial Dragon Legion, the leader of the 10 martial monarchs of the Great Qin Nation, the Nangong clan's clan head, Nangong Lai. The entire Imperial Dragon Legion actually turned out in full force. In a secret room 1,000 meters below the Imperial capital's Imperial Palace, an old man with white hair and beard suddenly opened his eyes. A golden light flashed, as though he could see through the essence of this world. It is actually the people of the boundless sea. Haha. However, is the divine weapon really that easy to obtain? If it were so easy, this old man would have made a move long ago. How foolish. After a while, the golden light scattered and the old man closed his eyes again, ignoring him. Long Tu slowly stood up in a deep pit at the foot of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Chinyan Peak. His azure robes were already in tatters. His hair was disheveled, and blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth. He was in a sorry state. Ha 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 ha. Good. Very good. You actually managed to injure me. It looks like you're seeking your own death today. I want the divine weapon. I will kill everyone in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, not leaving a single person alive. Long Tu looked at the boundless churning scarlet clouds above him and wiped the blood off his lips. Then he laughed maniacally. Long Tu's aura soared continuously. A horrifying might spread out into the surroundings without any concealment. His aura did not stop growing until it reached peak superior grade martial monarch. When the might of a martial monarch spread out, the grass grew stiff and the trees broke from the ground. The boundless aura crushed them into dust. Several Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples vomited a mouthful of blood under this horrifying might and fainted. Unexpectedly, this Long Tu was a peak superior grade martial monarch. When everyone saw this, their expressions changed greatly. When the first elder, Jiang Qi, saw Long Tu unleash his full aura, his expression changed slightly. He had not expected Long Tu to be a peak superior grade martial monarch. What should we do now? Long Tu is actually a peak superior grade martial monarch. First elder, get the supreme elders out. Otherwise, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion will suffer great losses, the people at the side said in unison. Jiang Qi's gaze was deep as he looked into the distance. There were countless experts from various places watching from a distance. Jiang Qi withdrew his gaze and shook his head. We can't do it yet. Let's hold on for a while. Let's see if the heavenly profound blood-slaughtering formation can suppress him. Suddenly, the boundless scarlet clouds in the sky started churning very quickly. After a while, a blurry face formed in the scarlet clouds. Only half of the face appeared. The other half merged with the scarlet clouds. A huge scarlet hand suddenly appeared. The palm of the scarlet hand was the size of a small mountain, and half of the arm was over 1,000 meters long. It smashed towards Long Tu, who was on the ground with a soaring aura. Long Tu's expression turned grave. Although he was arrogant, he was not a fool. When the huge hand landed, his figure flashed and quickly retreated. Bang! The scarlet hand left a huge handprint on the ground. The outline of the 5 fingers was very clear. The deepest part of the handprint was more than 100 meters deep. Uchi, the scarlet hand gently raised its hand and used the back of its huge hand to move towards Long Tuesday. Long Tu moved like lightning, moving quickly in the air. Bang! The back of the scarlet hand gently touched a desolate mountain. Half of the mountain immediately turned into powder, and half of the mountain was gone. With such a huge force, no wonder Long Tu did not dare to clash head-on. Instead, he chose to avoid it. The scarlet hand was like a human arm. When it moved, it was incredibly fast. It was no slower than Long Tu, who had comprehended the will of wind. Furthermore, under the suppression of the heavenly profound blood-slaughtering formation, the baleful aura in the air affected Long Two's speed. He could not shake off the scarlet hand. A purple light appeared on the tip of the spear, and Long Two tore open a spatial tear in the air. When the spatial tear closed, he entered it. Long Two hid in the spatial tear, and he immediately disappeared from the night sky. The blurry face on the scarlet clouds frowned slightly. Then it roared. Although it was a roar, it was as intense as thunder. When it opened its mouth and breathed, it formed an intense tornado in the air. The huge scarlet hand pulled back slightly, and its 5 fingers clenched the air. In that instant, a spatial tear appeared, and half of the arm entered it. Chapter 345. Bang, bang, bang. Loud sounds came from the spatial crack. An intense shockwave exploded in the air. Many black cracks appeared out of nowhere, spreading out like black streams in the air. Long Two tore open a spatial crack and quickly emerged from it. His expression turned even more grave. Clearly, he had not expected this scarlet hand to be so difficult to deal with. The instant Long Two emerged, he suddenly felt a chill on his face. When he turned his head back, he saw a huge scarlet hand crashing into him. It was the Scarlet Giant's hidden second arm. It shot out at lightning speed and opened its huge hand, grabbing Long Two in an instant. The huge hand grabbed Long Two's body and smashed him into the ground. It did not stop at all, causing the entire Lingyun mountain range to shake. Some of the old buildings could not withstand this force and collapsed. Countless cracks appeared on the ground, spreading out in all directions. The mountain peaks were directly blasted apart by the cracks, forming a huge crack in the sky from the center. Did he succeed? He was caught. With such horrifying force, he should have been smashed into meat paste, a few elders said joyfully. Jiangqi shook his head slightly. He could sense that the other party's aura had not weakened at all. Instead, it had become even more vigorous. Pah! The other scarlet hand also emerged from the void. Then, the 2 palms clapped ferociously. When the 2 palms merged, they had the strength to smash a small mountain into powder. When the 2 palms merged, even if the other party was an impregnable fortress, he should have been smashed into meat paste. Boom! Right after the palms clapped, an even more intense sound rang out. It was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing everyone's eardrums to burn and their internal organs to tremble. The sky was filled with bloody light exploding. Specks of bloody light sprinkled on the ground like raindrops. The 2 huge bloody hands were completely blown to pieces. 9 azure flood dragons circled around Long Tuesday. He smiled coldly and said, "Is that all you have? The heavenly profound blood-slaughtering formation is only SOSO. Ha ha! Watch me break this formation." It turned out that Long Two had not made a move all this while because he wanted to test the limits of the Scarlet Hands. Now that he knew their limits, he no longer feared them. Huchi! Without the interference of the huge Scarlet Hand, Long Two's speed completely recovered. He was so fast that the human eye could not even react to it. In the eyes of a regular cultivator, it was like teleportation. Xiao Chun brandished his spear, and 9 azure flood dragons circled around and roared. Then, he headed for one of the scarlet warships. A scarlet light descended from the sky and enveloped the scarlet warship, forming a thick, solid scarlet light. Break! Long Two roared, and 9 azure flood dragons merged into the spear. The purple spear immediately lit up with a resplendent, fiery light. It was like a purple sun in the night sky, so bright that no one dared to look at it directly. Xiao Chen's figure instantly vanished. A moment later, a huge, bloody hole appeared in the blood-colored pillar of light. The pillar of light shattered, and the blood-colored warship inside broke in half and fell to the ground. Break, 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 break! Long Two roared 6 times. His figure appeared and disappeared unpredictably in the void. His dazzling purple spear carried a destructive force as it pierced through the 7 blood-colored warships in an instant. No matter how powerful your magic skills are, how profound your formations are, or how vast your killing chi is, I only need to use one spear to stab you. I will use absolute strength to form an overwhelming attack." After the 7 warships were destroyed, the boundless scarlet clouds in the sky immediately dimmed. The scarlet giant sighed and slowly faded from the sky. "Ha ha 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 ha! The heavenly saber pavilion is so useless, yet you dare to speak such arrogant words," looking down on the divine dragon palace. "What other abilities do you have? Bring them all out. I, Long Two, will break them with one spear." After destroying the 7 warships, Long Two laughed maniacally. His voice was like rushing thunder, resounding everywhere. The entire heavenly saber pavilion could hear this arrogant voice. Such humiliation caused the blood of the heavenly saber pavilion disciples to surge. As one of the 3 great sects, when had they ever been humiliated like this? However, even though they were hot-blooded, they did not have the strength to back it up. They could only feel sullen in their hearts. After the heavenly profound blood-slaughtering formation was broken, the 100 elite divine saber camp disciples surrounding the other 6 sage envoys immediately showed flaws in their formation. The 6 sage envoys grasped the flaws and used their strength to charge around. In an instant, they broke through the encirclement of the 100 divine saber camp disciples. Most of the disciples died from severe injuries. "Big brother, do you need our help? Let's just destroy the heavenly saber pavilion together," the 7th sage envoy of the divine dragon palace said coldly, his eyes filled with hostility. Long Two said indifferently, "There's no need. The 6 of you go and retrieve the divine weapon. That side is the main point. I can handle this alone." The 6 of them nodded and immediately rushed to the top of Qingyun Peak at lightning speed. When the peak masters and elders saw this, they said anxiously, "First elder, if the supreme elder still does not come out and the divine weapon is stolen, the heavenly saber pavilion will perish." The first elder had a resolute gaze as he said sullenly, "It is not time yet. The true enemy has not appeared yet." Boom! 2 figures soared into the sky from the ground. It was Shimin Ing and Zhuyen. They rushed over again and blocked Long Two, who was preparing to destroy the heaven viewing platform's main hall. Dang! 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 The 2 of them gave off a red light, and their eyes turned scarlet. Their strength increased wildly. They had actually used the minor heavenly demon body separating technique, which burned their life force. Their state of massacre was forcibly raised to the state of massacre. Their cultivation also soared to peak medial grade, martial monarch. When the 2 of them worked together, they managed to block Long Two's surging attacks. "How dare you clash with the righteous sects with unorthodox sects?" Long Two snorted coldly. His spear sent out blurry spear images, like countless azure flood dragons roaring in the air. Even though the 2 of them executed the minor heavenly demon body separating technique, they could only hold on bitterly. This Long Two was a peak superior grade martial monarch, only a step shy of becoming a martial sage. He was simply too strong. Unless a martial sage appeared, no one could defeat him. Pooh! The 6 azure-robed sage envoys landed firmly on the summit of Qingyun Peak. Lu Tianyu sat cross-legged on a rock at the summit. His wrinkled face opened slightly when he felt the 6 of them land. His gaze was calm. He looked like an old man with a serene expression. A wooden box stood quietly beside him. The words, like the emperor descending personally, were carved on it. The 7th of the 7 sage envoys cursed. I was wondering who the person guarding the divine weapon was. It turns out that it is just a cripple with a shattered martial spirit. Old man, hand over the divine weapon, and this Lord 7 will not make things difficult for you. I will send you on your way and not let you feel any pain. Otherwise, Pussy eye. The 4 wooden boards on the wooden box shattered and fell to the ground. The divine weapon, the heavenly universe saber, floated quietly in the air. Lu Tianyu stretched out his hand and grasped the hilt of the divine weapon, the heavenly universe saber. His calm gaze suddenly lit up, and his aura soared into the sky. In an instant, he revealed his sharpness. With a cassier sound, the divine weapon was unsheathed. A dazzling light dazzled the eyes of the six. A saber light flashed by. Before the seventh of the seven sage envoys could finish speaking, a bloody wound appeared on his neck. His head flew into the air. He died without knowing why. There was no pain at all. The other six were astonished. When they saw the unsheathed divine weapon, they fled for their lives. They were shocked. Didn't the Dragon King say that the divine weapon could not be completely unsheathed? How did this old man manage to completely unsheathe the divine weapon? This was completely beyond their expectations. The might of the divine weapon could even kill a martial sage. They were only martial monarchs. How could they dare to be impudent? They used all their means to flee. Long Tu, who was suppressing Shimin Ing and Lu Tianyu, changed his expression. He forced the two back with one move. Then, he moved as fast as lightning, heading for the summit. In the blink of an eye, Long Tu arrived at the summit of Qingyun Peak. When he saw the unsheathed divine weapon, he revealed an expression of shock. Xiao! Lu Tianyu remained expressionless as he watched Long Tu fly over. He gently brandished the heavenly universe divine weapon, and a simple, resplendent saber qi flew at Long Tu's qi. Qi. Everywhere the saber qi passed, space was sliced in half. The empty space was like a piece of tofu, sliced in half from the middle. Long Tu's expression changed drastically. This was no longer a power that he could control. Even if he used his full power, he could only tear a crack in space. If he were to view space as a rock, he could make a crack on the rock, but the other party could easily cut the rock in half like tofu. The will of the divine weapon had already locked onto Long Tuesday. He had no chance to dodge this saber strike. The purple spear lit up with a resplendent light. A crescent-shaped azure energy appeared. The will of wind and the energy was condensed to the extreme. Countless cracks appeared in the void. Long Tu used all his strength to block this move. Pu Ci. There was no earth-shaking sound or overwhelming energy fluctuation. That strand of saber qi that sliced through space easily destroyed Long Tu's full-powered strike. At the critical moment, a jade pendant on Long Tu's chest burst out with a bright light. It emitted a solid light barrier that encased him. It was not strange for a martial monarch expert to have one or two life-saving secret treasures. Bang! The light barrier instantly shattered, and the jade pendant on Long Tu's chest shattered into tiny pieces. Blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth as he flew back a kilometer. The sharp saber qi did not lose any momentum. It flew quickly towards the horizon, flying all the way to the distant starry heavens before disappearing from everyone's sight. "Big brother, are you all right?" Long Tu asked anxiously as the other six caught hold of him in midair. The sixth of the seven sage envoys said, "Big brother, are we still going to retrieve the divine weapon?" Seventh brother is already dead. The situation had changed too quickly. Just a moment ago, Long Tu was still in high spirits, wanting to sweep through the entire heavenly saber pavilion. Now, he was easily defeated with one saber strike and severely injured. Kassiye. At the summit of Qingyun Peak, Lu Tianyu still sat cross-legged on the rock. His body did not move at all, and his expression was calm. The divine weapon returned to its scabbard with a huang-dang sound. The first elder, Jiang Qi, had a suspicious expression. He could not understand how Lu Tianyu managed to draw the divine weapon. Boom! Chapter 346. Lu Tianyu held the divine weapon in his right hand as he stood upright on the ground. Then, he pointed with his left hand. Several dozen strands of saber qi revolved around his fingertips. The saber qi spun continuously, shooting at the six people in the air like an awl. In the pitch-black night sky, the awl-like rotating saber qi tore a spatial crack that was even darker than the night sky. The six people immediately scattered in the air. They executed their movement techniques and moved around, trying to avoid this strand of saber qi. Lu Tianyu's right hand, which was holding the divine weapon, flipped his palm over and faced it downwards. The divine weapon spun quickly, and the condensed saber qi immediately scattered, chasing after the six people. The sharp saber qi danced wildly in the air. It was so fast that it was like silver lightning, tearing open spatial tears. The six people executed their movement techniques to their limits. The people below could not see them at all. They could only see a blurry light flickering in their vision. Miserable cries came from the air. The sharp saber chi was hard to defend against. It broke through the protective essence of the six people and left horrifying wounds. Using the might of the divine weapon, Lu Tianyu toyed with the six people in the palm of his hand. Hu Qi, just as the six people were covered in injuries and were bitterly holding on, there was an intense spatial fluctuation. Suddenly, an intense spatial fluctuation appeared. Above the six of them, a huge spatial gate suddenly opened. Seeing the spatial gate open, the six of them immediately became overjoyed. A huge azure dragon image peeked out from the door. It opened its huge mouth and swallowed the six people. After that, the huge dragon head quickly retreated into the spatial door. Lu Tianyu snorted coldly. You think you can come and go as you please? Who do you think my heavenly saber pavilion is? Boom! Lu Tianyu held the divine weapon in his right hand and threw his left hand into the air. His ordinary arm immediately grew infinitely large. Just as the azure dragon was about to enter the spatial door, Lu Tianyu exerted force with his left hand and grabbed the dragon head. He exerted force with his left hand and grabbed the dragon's head. The dragon's head shook and roared, causing the sky to tremble as it tried to break free. The scabbard of the divine weapon gave off a bright light. Lu Tianyu's left hand seemed to have the power to tear the sky apart. No matter how the dragon shook and roared, it did not move. Get back here! Lu Tianyu shouted and pulled with his huge hand, pulling the huge blue dragon out of the spatial door. Bang, bang, bang. The huge azure dragon image's 1,000-meter-long body tumbled in the air, shattering countless mountains and pavilions in an instant. Boom! Lu Tianyu had a grave expression on his face as he swung his huge hand behind him, tossing the horrifying dragon image towards the desolate back mountains of the Lingyun mountain range. A towering mountain peak was smashed into smithereens by the dragon. The ground in the distance was covered in dust, and rocks flew everywhere. The image of the dragon slowly dissipated. The six people in the dragon head vomited blood from the immense force. Their injuries worsened as they struggled to stand up from the ground, wanting to escape. The first elder's expression turned cold. He said, "Divine Saber Camp, heed my orders. Do not let a single one of them off." Roger. The red figures on the ground quickly leaped towards the back mountains of the Lingyun mountain range and surrounded the six severely injured people. After Lu Tianyu pulled the huge dragon out, he looked at the spatial door that was about to close. A murderous intent appeared in his eyes as he drew the heavenly universe saber again. A strand of resplendent golden saber chi shot out from the saber. Just as the spatial door was about to close, it shot into it. Hu Qi, millions of kilometers away in the boundless sea, a strand of golden saber chi suddenly appeared in the sky above an island. Then, it headed for the splendid palace on the island. Everywhere it passed, the buildings of the palace crumbled. The golden saber chi directly chopped them in half. Several unlucky green-robe cultivators were chopped in half for no reason. The golden saber chi cut through everything like a hot knife through butter. It immediately flew to the main hall of the palace. A middle-aged man in azure dragon robes sat on a dragon throne in the main hall. This person looked very majestic with a high nose and large eyes. He exuded the air of a ruler. With one look, one could tell that he was a person of high status. His chi and blood flourished, and his eyes shone brightly. When the middle-aged man saw the golden saber chi breaking through the palace and flying towards him, his expression turned grave. He clenched two fingers on his right hand and shouted. A strand of azure-colored dragon chi came from his fingertip. The dragon head on the fingertip roared ferociously. It finally blocked this indestructible and unstoppable golden saber chi. Bang! The azure-colored dragon chi and the golden saber chi clashed, giving off an intense explosion. The raging energy immediately reduced the entire main hall to rubble. Only a lonely dragon throne remained in the vast palace. Blood leaked out of the middle-aged man's lips as he sat on the dragon throne. His complexion was somewhat pale. That strand of golden saber chi had not scattered yet. It clashed continuously with the azure-colored dragon chi at the fingertip. The middle-aged man shouted and suddenly stood up. Then he pushed his arm forward. There was a melodious explosion, and the golden saber chi turned into countless motes of light. The motes of light were like a torrential storm as they spread out in all directions. The cultivators that rushed over were covered in wounds, their bodies mangled. 7 strong figures blasted the motes of light into nothing and landed beside the middle-aged man. When they saw the blood leaking out of the middle-aged man's mouth, they were astonished. The Dragon King, who was like a god to them, was actually injured. All of them quickly knelt down and said in fear and trepidation, "This subordinate is incompetent and caused the Dragon King to be injured." The middle-aged man, known as the Dragon King, took out a handkerchief and slowly wiped the blood off his lips. Then he looked at the handkerchief and entered deep thought. Then he casually tossed the handkerchief into the air. There was an explosion of energy, and the handkerchief immediately turned into countless pieces of cloth. He said softly, "Get up. From today onwards, the 7 of you are the new holy envoys of the divine Dragon Palace." The hearts of the 7 people kneeling on the ground trembled. They did not feel any joy. They knew that the 7 holy envoys that went to the heavenly saber pavilion probably would not return. 7 martial monarchs had died. The divine Dragon Palace had suffered a heavy loss. The Dragon King looked into the distance, his eyes filled with infatuation. He muttered to himself, "The strength of the divine weapon is indeed strong." Unfortunately, this person did not even bring out 1/10 of its might. Back in the heavenly saber pavilion, Lu Tianyu, who had just executed his shocking saber strike, immediately sheathed the divine weapon. The scattered wooden boxes pattered back together, completely covering up the aura of the divine weapon. Under the rock, countless black tentacles extended all over Lu Tianyu's body, making his face look very sinister. Lu Tianyu frowned and closed his eyes. Then he started an endless battle with the tentacles. Reporting to the First Elder, the 6 people who barged into the heavenly saber pavilion put up a stubborn resistance. The divine saber camp suffered heavy casualties and could not capture them alive. "We could only kill them," a divine saber camp high official reported in a sullen voice as he flew to Jiang Qi's side, covered in injuries. Even though the martial monarchs were severely injured, the destructive power of the divine saber camp still shocked this high official. Jiang Qi looked at the scene of desolation, the dead and injured heavenly saber pavilion disciples, and the rubble of the Lingyun mountain range. He said with a sullen expression, "Chop off their heads and hang them on the city walls of Saber City forever." "Roger," that person replied, and immediately left to carry out the order. Not long after the man had left, the First Elder's expression suddenly changed. The expressions of the Peak Masters and the members of the Elders' Council who were following behind the First Elder all changed at the same time. They saw 10 golden warships outside the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's restrictions flying towards the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When they were about to touch the restrictions, they accelerated. Bang! 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 The golden horn of the ship was like a sharp knife. 10 sharp knives slowly broke through the tough restriction, and a deafening explosion resounded between heaven and earth. The Imperial Dragon Legion's flagship is actually flying over. "What is Nangong Lai trying to do?" a few of them exclaimed. Jiang Qi said calmly, "Pass the orders to the Supreme Elders. Tell them to come out and welcome them." After Jiang Qi spoke, he led the group towards the warships in the sky. They were as fast as the wind and arrived before the flagship in the blink of an eye. Jiang Qi looked at Nangong Lai, who was clad in golden battle armor and had an exuberant chi and blood soaring into the sky. He said coldly, "Nangong Lai, what are you trying to do?" Under the fluttering golden banner, Nangong Lai looked at the devastated Lingyun mountain range. He smiled gently and said, "Brother Jiang, There's no need to be anxious. I just saw that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion is facing a great enemy, so I came to help. With the Imperial Dragon Legion's help, we will be able to eliminate the remnants." Jiang Qi smiled coldly. "Many thanks for General Nangong's kind intentions. The enemy has already been dealt with by the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. General Nangong can return now." Nangong Yin laughed loudly. "I have good intentions. Brother Jiang, why are you chasing me away in such a rush? Today's enemies have already been defeated. What about tomorrow and the day after? Such a huge loss. I'm afraid the Heavenly Saber Pavilion will not be able to endure it for long. How about this? Our Imperial Dragon Legion will send a warship to guard the Heavenly Saber Pavilion for a long time, helping the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to defend against the enemy. The Imperial Dragon Legion is still quite strong." Hu Qi. Right after Nangong Yin spoke, aside from the largest flagship, the other 9 warships opened their cannons on both sides. Ancient demonic energy cannons revealed their malevolent faces. Countless golden talisman scripts appeared around the warship, flickering with a dazzling light. The few elders behind Jiang Qi all had sullen expressions. Rage burned in their hearts. Nangong Lai was blatantly threatening the Heavenly Saber Pavilion after seeing the heavy losses. The royal clan and the 3 great sects had always been on guard against each other. The royal clan of any empire did not wish to see a power that could threaten the royal clan. However, aside from being on guard, the sects and the royal clan relied on each other to a certain extent. There had to be strong sects within a nation. The more sects there were, the stronger the nation would be. However, there was a precondition. The royal clan had to have absolute power to suppress these sections. Otherwise, they would always be a hidden danger in the eyes of the royal clan. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion, which possessed a divine weapon, was such a sect. 20 years ago, the previous pavilion master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was an absolute genius. The sect was filled with talents and experts. The sect was the strongest of the 3 great sections. With the might of a divine weapon, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was a peak power in the entire Tianwu continent. The people of the royal clan felt immense pressure. However, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was not very lucky. When the demonic calamity broke out, nearly all the experts of the older generation died. The genius pavilion master even died in battle. The strength of the entire sect was greatly reduced. Chapter 347. In order to prevent the resurgence of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, the royal court had been looking for an opportunity to make a move. Now, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was in trouble again. The Qin Emperor decisively made a move, wanting to station a warship in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. This was like stabbing a sharp knife into the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. It could greatly restrict the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's development. Jiang Qi's expression remained calm when he saw the golden warships firing on all cylinders. He said indifferently, "Nangong Lai, it looks like you really like to play with fire. In that case, I will play with you." Nangong Lai's eyelids sank. He thought to himself, could it be that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion still has some trump cards? Impossible. Nangong Lai shook his head and said indifferently, if they really had a trump card, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would not have been reduced to rubble. How could a great sect watch as their own sect was destroyed like that? Even if they had one, they would have used it already. After the consecutive battles, they probably did not have much combat prowess left. Nangong Lai continued to smile indifferently. Brother Jiang Qi, it was not my idea to station a warship in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. You should know whose idea it is. I hope you will not make things difficult for me. Jiang Qi said indifferently. In that case, get him to come and talk to me personally. Before Nangong Lai could say anything, an adjutant at the side shouted, "How dare you speak to His Majesty like that? Is the Emperor someone you can meet whenever you want? How dare you speak to Elder Jiang Qi like that? Why are you still not apologizing to Elder Jiang?" Nangong Lai pretended to reprimand the adjutant. After that, he turned to Jiang Qi and smiled. My subordinate did not know the rules. I will teach him a lesson for Brother Jiang later. Jiang Qi's expression was very calm. His eyes did not change. He said indifferently, "There's no need. He's already dead." Nangong Lai's expression changed. He looked to the side and saw a tiny wound on the adjutant's neck. The faint wound looked negligible to the naked eye. The adjutant did not feel any pain. He did not even notice the wound on his neck. "You want to take my life? You cannot do that," the adjutant said indifferently as he looked at Jiangqi. However, the adjutant saw shock in Nangong Lai's eyes. The adjutant turned his head to look suspiciously. However, he saw a headless corpse wearing golden battle armor standing behind him. Why does this corpse look so familiar? The adjutant's last thought as his head flew into the air. Bang! Nangong Lai punched the air in front of him to his right. This punch was clearly in the air, but it produced a deafening sound. The huge battleship shook uncontrollably under the force of this punch. The void shattered, and a blood-red figure emerged from the crack. He wore a ghostly mask with a faint smile on his face, and his right hand held a cold mask. The scarlet figure gently floated and appeared at the top of the ship like a ghost. When Nangong Lai saw this person, his expression turned grave for the first time. He exclaimed in shock, "Shimenjan, you are actually not dead yet." Shimenjan was the previous commander of the Divine Saber Camp. Now, he was more than 190 years old. Before he went into seclusion, he was already a peak medial grade martial monarch. Shimen smiled faintly. "Little brat Nangong, do you really wish for this old man to die?" Boom, boom, boom. From the east, south, west, and north, for powerful auras rose one after another. These auras soared into the sky, spreading out endlessly. They were all the auras of peak superior grade martial monarchs. When Nangong Lai saw these people, his expression changed drastically. He muttered to himself, "Shen Manjun, the previous two peak masters of Jade Maiden Peak, Xiao Feng, the previous peak master of Qianwan Peak, Song Bai, the previous peak master of Biyun Peak, and Lu Xiaoa, the previous peak master of Gongyu Peak." Not only were these people not dead, but their auras were also flourishing. Their qi and blood surged. Clearly, they had not gone through a huge battle. They were all at their peak. Among the four, a white figure slowly floated over. It was the Jade Maiden Peak's Shen Manjun. Nangong Lai looked at the otherworldly Shen Manjun and did not dare to be impudent. Before he became famous, she had already become famous throughout the entire Great Qi nation. When Nangong Lai was young, he had even secretly worshipped Shen Manjun. Originally, he thought that she had died long ago. He did not expect her to appear before him in one piece. Nangong Lai, Jiangqi said that the Qin Emperor cannot come personally. "In that case, can I make the request?" Shen Manjun asked indifferently as she looked at Nangong Lai. Nangong Lai cried bitterly in his heart. He had not expected the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to have 5 martial monarchs in perfect condition. Furthermore, there was a martial monarch who was even more horrifying than him. With the strength of the Imperial Dragon Legion, it was not impossible to defeat these people. However, the price they would have to pay would be too high. Furthermore, the Qin Emperor did not intend to destroy the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He only wanted to take advantage of the situation and suppress the other party's strength, taking things step by step. It was not an all-out war with the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Starting a war with a sect would have too many implications. It would be hard to avoid the suspicions of the other two great sections. Nangong Lai's expression kept changing. After a while, he slowly calmed down. He smiled gently and said, "Senior Shun, this is really just a misunderstanding. Since the Heavenly Saber Pavilion has resolved its crisis, the Imperial Dragon Legion has no intention of remaining." After Nangong Lai spoke, he took out a row of wooden chests and said, "There are 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones here. Consider it compensation for the Imperial Dragon Legion for breaking the restrictions. Goodbye." Jiangqi received the wooden chests and felt humiliated in his heart. He wished he could smash the wooden chests into smithereens. Shen Manjun, who was beside him, placed her hand gently on his shoulder. A gentle wave of essence spread over, calming his agitated heart. Jiangqi quickly thanked her. "Many thanks, ancestral martial aunt. Jiangqi is useless," causing the heavenly saber pavilion to be humiliated several times. Shen Manjun smiled gently and said, "You have already done very well. Don't blame yourself. There is still hope for the heavenly saber pavilion. The news of the 3 holy masters should arrive tomorrow." The 10 golden warships of the Imperial Dragon Legion immediately turned around and left. Before the gazes of the experts of the Shiha province, they slowly withdrew from the Lingyun mountain range. He came and went in and out in a hurry. Many people scratched their heads as they watched, not knowing what was going on inside. The Imperial Dragon Legion came out in full force. It was clear they wanted to take advantage of the situation. However, not long after they entered, they retreated safely. It did not seem like there was a dispute. Halfway up Qingyan Peak, Xiao Chen saw all this. He shook his head and thought to himself, in the end, the heavenly saber pavilion has declined. Although the Imperial Dragon Legion left behind 10,000 medial great spirit stones, they could come and go as they pleased. In the eyes of the world, it was easy to tell who was strong and who was weak. Lu Riyue looked at her ruined courtyard and shook her head. She smiled bitterly and said, "Yi Chun, I am homeless now." Xiao Chun collected his thoughts and smiled gently. "You can come to my place and stay for a while. There are still empty rooms in the courtyard. You can come back after the courtyard is repaired." Lu Riyue smiled and said, "It is settled then. I will go to the summit to see my father first. I will see you tomorrow." Xiao Chun was slightly stunned. He did not expect Lu Riyue to agree so straightforwardly. Originally, he was just saying it casually. By the time he recovered his wits, Lu Riyue had already gone far away. Xiao Chen revealed a faint smile and shook his head slightly. Then, he quickly headed to his courtyard. This unprecedented battle gave Xiao Chen a lot of thoughts. This was the first time he saw the true destructive power of a peak human cultivator. The so-called splitting mountains, moving rivers, and draining seas were not just legends. In the past, he had only heard of it. Now that he saw it for himself, he truly felt the shock in his heart. Furthermore, this was only the strength of a martial monarch. There was still the martial sage Emperor Wu. Just thinking about it made his blood boil. I still have a long way to go. Sooner or later, I, Xiao Chun, will become such an expert. No, I will be stronger than these people. I will rise to the heavens and reach the peak of cultivators. My name will be spread through the ages, just like the Tianwu Emperor from 10,000 years ago and the Thunder King from 1,000 years ago. Xiao Chen's emotions surged. He swore in his heart that he would definitely achieve this. The sun was high up in the sky. The weather was pleasant. There were no clouds in the sky. In a place with abundant spiritual energy in the back mountains of Qingyan Peak, Xiao Chun sat cross-legged on the ground. He slowly circulated the purple thunder divine incantation. The purple essence circulated quickly in his meridians, breaking through all the obstacles along the way. It was an endless cycle. There were 9 main meridians in a cultivator's body. When a cultivator condensed their martial spirit, they would instantly open up. The 9 main meridians were very important. They were the foundation of a cultivator's cultivation. The so-called essence circulating in the meridians was actually a cycle in the 9 main meridians. After that, as a cultivator's cultivation realm increased, there would be new branch meridians outside of the main meridians. The number of branch meridians in the human body could be said to be as many as the stars in the sky. With every increase in cultivation realm, there would be many more branch meridians. These branch meridians were the expansion of the main meridians. It was like the countless branches of a tree. The more branch meridians there were, the more flourishing the tree would be. It was the same principle for cultivators. The more branch meridians there were, the more vigorous and surging the essence in the body would be. The so-called essence circulating in a great cycle referred to the essence circulating in the 9 main meridians once before going to the various branch meridians and returning to the dantian. It grew and multiplied endlessly, forming a virtuous cycle. After every cycle, the quality and quantity of essence qi would increase. This was the essence of cultivation. However, Xiao Chun felt a headache over this branch meridian. he felt very depressed. Not long ago, Xiao Chun relied on the rich spiritual energy of the Lingyun mountain range to finally reach the peak of the 5th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. Just as he was preparing to break through to the 6th layer, suddenly, he discovered that the branch meridians required to cultivate the 6th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation were not fully opened. 4 of them were still sealed. This way, the path of the 6th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation would be incomplete. There was no way to form a cycle, and he would not be able to cultivate the 6th layer. Now, there were 2 solutions. The first was to temporarily give up on cultivating the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. He would wait until his cultivation realm increased and these branch meridians opened up before he attempted to break through. In reality, most of the cultivators in this continent did the same. This was because many cultivation techniques had very strict requirements on cultivation realms. Furthermore, the person who created the cultivation technique did not do it on purpose. Only when one reached the corresponding cultivation realm and cultivated the corresponding cultivation technique could the cycle progress gradually. It would not result in a situation of spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm. Chapter 348. There was another method, which was to use essence to forcefully open these minor meridians. Once the minor meridians were opened, he could cultivate the 6th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. This way, Xiao Chen's strength could increase rapidly in a short period of time. However, the difficulty of breaking through was not mentioned. Forcefully opening 4 minor meridians in one go would definitely leave behind some hidden dangers. If not dealt with properly, it would greatly affect his cultivation in the future. After the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation circulated a major cycle in his body, Xiao Chen opened his eyes. A purple light flashed in his eyes, illuminating the dark forest for an instant. The light flashed for a moment before it was hidden in the depths of his eyes. As he looked at the purple lightning-attributed energy in the air, Xiao Chun casually waved his hand. The purple energy instantly formed a whirlpool and gathered on his palm, forming a clump of purple flame. Xiao Chun pushed his hand forward, and purple flames shot out. The trees in front of him were silently burned to ashes without a sound. Bang! In the end, the purple flames crashed into a mountain wall and immediately blasted open a large hole with a diameter of 100 meters. The mountain gently shook a few times, and a piece of rock fell down with a crashing sound. A casual strike could have such an effect. In the past, Xiao Chun would have been a little proud. However, after seeing the strength of a peak martial monarch, Xiao Chun knew that this was not worth mentioning. In the eyes of a true expert, it was like child's play. Recollecting his thoughts, Xiao Chun stood up and muttered, "I am now a peak medial grade martial saint. I need to open 4 minor meridians. When I advance to superior grade martial saint, I will open one of the minor meridians. When I advance to peak superior grade martial saint, I will open another one. When I advance to Martial King, I will open the remaining 2. That is to say, I can only truly cultivate the 6th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation when I advance to Martial King." This was a difficult choice. Forcefully breaking through would be risky. If I waited until I advanced to Martial King, it would waste too much time. Never mind, I will not think about it for now. I will go back and discuss it with Lu Ruyue and hear her opinion. Xiao Chen shook his head slightly and stopped thinking about this problem. Then, he walked toward his courtyard. At this moment, 3 days had passed since the startling battle in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. During these 3 days, everyone in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was very busy. They repaired the destroyed palaces and buildings, and also treated the unlucky disciples who were affected by the aftermath of the battle. As for the elders, they were even busier. Not only were they busy giving orders to these trifling matters, but they were also very busy. He also had to calculate how great the loss was this time, comfort the people, compensate the families of the deceased, and so on, a series of things that he had to worry about. In these 3 days, all sorts of rumors about the Heavenly Saber Pavilion spread throughout the Shiha province. Many experts had personally witnessed the sudden heavy losses. Furthermore, The Imperial Dragon Legion could enter and leave the Heavenly Saber Pavilion as they pleased. There was no way to hide this. As the rumor spread, they became even more ridiculous. Someone said that the Supreme Elders of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had all died in battle. More than half of the core disciples were dead, and the first elder was killed by the enemy. All sorts of rumors magnified the losses of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When Xiao Chan thought about the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's decision to postpone the inner disciple ranking competition at the end of the year, he could not help but think that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had declined. A portion of the small sects and clans that maintained a subordinate relationship with the Heavenly Saber Pavilion also felt uneasy. What made Xiao Chan feel strange was that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion did not provide any explanation for these rumors. They did not care about the rumors in the outside world. They focused all their attention on repairing the destroyed buildings and treating the disciples. In Xiao Chen's opinion, although the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had declined, it was still the strongest power in the Xia province. They had 5 supreme elders who were martial monarchs. This already left the other powers far behind. Furthermore, there was a mysterious expert who wielded a divine weapon. Furthermore, they firmly controlled a spirit vein that could continuously produce spirit stones. With such accumulations, their position as the strongest sect in the Xia province could not be shaken. In this disaster, the only one that suffered a greater loss was the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Divine Saber Camp. However, although the 2 commanders were severely injured, they survived in the end. However, Xiao Chan could not be bothered with these things. He only thought about them when he was bored. He spent most of his time cultivating. Even without circulating his movement technique, Xiao Chan moved very fast. Before he knew it, he had arrived at his courtyard. Lu Ryue and Bai were currently playing Gamoku at the stone table in the courtyard. Gamoku was something that Xiao Chan had created when he was bored. It could be considered a nostalgia for that world. Whenever he had free time, he would play a few rounds with Bai. Bai was very intelligent. She only needed to explain the rules to learn it. Furthermore, she improved very quickly. It would not be easy for Xiao Chan to defeat her now. Xiao Chan walked over quietly and looked at the situation on the board. Unexpectedly, Lu Ryue had the upper hand. Bai was busy thinking of countermeasures. She looked very adorable. Lu Ryue looked at Xiao Chan beside her and smiled gently. "You're back. It seems like your strength has improved again." Xiao Chan smiled and replied, "I ran into some trouble. You play first. I will discuss it with you later." When Bai saw Xiao Chan arrive, she immediately smiled joyfully. "Elder brother Yi Chun, quickly teach me how to play. Elder sister Ryue is too incredible. I have not been able to defeat her even once." Ever since Lu Ryue arrived, Xiao Chan told Bai to call him by his alias. Although Bai did not understand why, she still did as she was told. Xiao Chan gently patted Bai's head and smiled. "Use your own brain. You cannot rely on others to guide you when playing Go. You have to train your thinking." Bai pouted and said, "Elder brother Yi Chun just likes to side with elder sister Ryue. He is not willing to help Bai." Xiao Chan shook his head and smiled faintly. He ignored Bai's words and walked to the side to rest. After a while, Bai, who had lost to Lu Ryue again, put away the Go board and said, "Woo-woo. Elder sister Ryue is too incredible. I will not play with you anymore. Hee. Bai, go and look for elder sister Xiao Meng. Even if Xiao Meng and Xiao Yang worked together, they would not be able to defeat Bai." After she spoke, she put away the Go board and skipped out of the courtyard. She did not seem dispirited at all. Clearly, she did not care about winning or losing. After Bai left, Xiao Chan opened his eyes and walked over to Lu Ryue. Lu Ryue asked, "What trouble did you run into? Let me see if I can help you." Xiao Chan nodded and told Lu Ryue about the difficulties he faced when cultivating the Purple Thunder Divine incantation in detail. After Lu Ryue heard it, she frowned slightly. Her face, which was filled with a mature charm, revealed a contemplative expression. After a while, Lu Ryue relaxed her frown and revealed a smile. She said softly, "Let's see if we can do it this way. Opening 4 minor meridians in one go is indeed risky. However, if we only open 2, the risk will not be as high." Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. He said, Are you saying that I should wait until I become a peak superior grade martial saint before forcefully opening the other two minor meridians? Lu Ryu nodded and said, That's right. At that time, you will be breaking through to Martial King. If you can cultivate the sixth layer of the Purple Thunder Divine incantation, breaking through to Martial King will be much easier. When preparing to open the minor meridians, remember to prepare some spirit herbs for nourishing the meridians. If you can buy medicinal pills for nourishing the meridians, that would be for the best. A forcefully open meridian is much weaker than a naturally open meridian. If it is not well protected, this minor meridian will slowly be crippled in the future. On the other hand, if you take good care of it, there will not be any hidden dangers in the meridians. Xiao Qin's mind suddenly became clear. Although he still needed some time to cultivate to peak Martial Saint, it was much faster than cultivating to Martial King. Furthermore, according to Lu Ryue's method, breaking through to Martial King would be much easier. Xiao Qin rejoiced in his heart. He thanked her. Ryue, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You have helped me greatly again. Lu Ryue smiled gently. When she saw Xiao Qin's happy smile, she felt happy for him as well. That's right. My father wants you to go to the summit tonight. He has something to discuss with you, Lu Ryue suddenly said, as though she recalled something. The night sky was dark and filled with stars. Xiao Qin looked at the summit of Qinyan Peak. His eyes were filled with hesitation. If there was one person in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion that could make Xiao Qin feel fear from the bottom of his heart, that person would be Lu Qianyu. Regardless of whether it was someone as strong as Song Ke or someone as powerful as the First Elder, although Xiao Qin feared them, he did not feel any fear. This was because he could see through these people. He could tell where their limits and limits were. Since he knew their limits, naturally, he had nothing to fear. However, there was only Lu Tianyu. If Xiao Qin could avoid meeting him, he would do so. When Xiao Qin first arrived at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, this person gave him a scabbard to help him cover up the traces left by the Thunder King on the Lunar Shadow Saber. With one glance, Lu Tianyu saw through Xiao Qin's identity as the Thunder King's inheritor. After that, he half coerced and half bribed Xiao Qin into sending him into a different dimension. He had narrowly escaped with his life. Before Lu Tianyu, Xiao Qin did not have any secrets. Such a person was terrifying. No matter how unwilling he was, Xiao Qin had to go. This person could not even afford to hide. Xiao Qin calmed his emotions and pushed off the ground. He dashed up the steps leading up the mountain. When he arrived at the cliff, he used the gravity spell and soared into the air. After a while, he landed firmly on the ground. A strong wind blew endlessly at the summit. Xiao Qin's hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. He could not even keep his eyes open. Lu Tianyu sat cross-legged on that strange rock. When the wind blew past him, it was like he was air. There were no ripples at all. The two of them stood on the summit, one quiet and the other moving. The difference in their cultivations was clear. Lu Tianyu opened his eyes. His somewhat turbid eyes looked at Xiao Qin quietly. Lu Tianyu's face was filled with wrinkles. He looked even older than before. There were signs of aging between his eyebrows. Lu Tianyu's gaze made Xiao Qin's hair stand on end. He quickly asked, Senior, why are you looking for me? I hope you can tell me. Chapter 349. Lu Tianyu was not in a rush to reply to Xiao Qin. He looked at Xiao Qin and revealed a smile on his aged face. He said in a drawn-out manner, There is something I would like to ask for your help with. Xiao Qin smiled faintly. Senior must be joking again. You can even draw the divine weapon. Is there anything in this world that you can do? I am just a mere martial saint. How can I accept such a favor? Without hesitation, Xiao Qin rejected Lu Tianyu's request immediately. Now that he no longer owed Lu Tianyu a favor, there was no need for him to put himself in danger. Lu Tianyu's favor was not that easy to help. Lu Tianyu was not surprised at Xiao Qin's rejection. He stared at Xiao Qin without saying a word. Lu Tianyu's gaze did not contain any irrelevant thoughts. He allowed Lu Tianyu to roar, not saying a word as he looked at Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin felt very uncomfortable being stared at by Lu Tianyu. After a while, He could not take it anymore and said, "Tell me what you need help with first." Lu Tianyu squinted his eyes and revealed a smile on his face. He said, "I just know that young hero Yi is young and promising. You have the heart of a bodhisattva and love to help others. You will take pity on an old man like me." Xiao Chan interrupted, "Please don't flatter me. Just say it directly." Lu Tianyu waved his hand, and the wooden box with the words like the emperor descending personally was sucked over by his palm, rolling around in the air. "I would like to give this divine weapon to you," Lu Tianyu said seriously as he withdrew his smile. Xiao Chen's heart trembled. It felt like waves were surging in his mind. No matter how resilient he was, when he heard that Lu Tianyu wanted to give him a divine weapon, he could not help but feel excited. However, in the blink of an eye, Xiao Chun calmed down. An innocent man would get into trouble because of his wealth. Without the corresponding strength, trying to obtain the divine weapon was akin to seeking death. Furthermore, Lu Tianyu would not give him the divine weapon for no reason. This was the foundation of the heavenly saber pavilion. How could they give it to someone else so easily? Help me pass this to someone. When he sees the divine weapon, he will know everything. As expected, Lu Tianyu quickly replied. Xiao Chan smiled bitterly in his heart. "Senior, can you finish your words in one breath? Handing over the divine weapon to me. Aren't you afraid that I'll pocket it for myself?" Lu Tianyu said indifferently. "Even if you want to use it, you won't be able to pull it out. To you, it is just a piece of scrap metal." Within the strong wind, Xiao Chen closed his eyes and entered deep thought. After a long time, he opened his eyes and said, "Sorry, I really cannot do this. There are many experts in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Why did Senior choose me?" The incident from 3 days ago was still fresh in his mind. The temptation of a divine weapon was too great. The other party did not even care about the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and directly charged over. What ability did he have to protect the divine weapon? Not to mention a peak martial monarch. Even a superior grade martial king would be able to defeat him easily. Lu Tianyu said indifferently. There was a sorrowful tone in his voice as he said, "Who in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would agree to hand the divine weapon to someone else?" The Heavenly Saber Pavilion is currently plagued with internal and external problems. A storm is brewing. This is the most dangerous period since the establishment of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. This is also the last wish of this old man. I hope little brother will not reject it. Xiao Chun did not understand. Lung Liusu advanced to peak inferior grade martial king at the age of 17. The 3 holy masters will send people to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. With the support of the Holy Lands, who would be foolish enough to oppose the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? Lu Tianyu shook his head and said, "If this old man could move freely, I would do my best to prevent this from happening. There would not be a good result from interacting with the 3 holy masters." Xiao Chun shook his head and said, "The 3 holy masters are detached from the world. They possess absolute strength and are not under the jurisdiction of any royal clan. Their methods are heaven-defying. There will only be benefits to having them backing us. There will not be any benefits." Lu Tianyu smiled coldly and said, "How foolish. There are many peak powers in this continent. Do you know who, aside from the 3 holy masters, is the true ruler of the world? Do you know how big this world is? You can imagine how dangerous the competition between the peak powers is. Everyone in the world is motivated by benefits. If they cannot obtain something, they will not let others obtain it. There has never been a true savior of the world. As for how big the world was, how many peak powers there were in the continent, and who is the true ruler of the world, Xiao Chun did not know." Lu Tianyu's series of questions rendered Xiao Chun speechless. He could not think of any rebuttal. Cough, cough. After Lu Tianyu spoke, his expression suddenly turned extremely unsightly. He could not help but cough. Black lines appeared on his face. He looked like he was in great pain. Xiao Chun was startled. He quickly went forward and asked, "Senior, what's wrong? Don't come over." Lu Tianyu's expression turned sinister as he shouted. A horrifying death qi emanated from his body. Xiao Chen's expression sank. He placed his right hand on his saber hilt and retreated, landing at the edge of the cliff. That death chi penetrated deep into one's heart. Xiao Chun had never seen such a pure death chi before. It made him tremble in fear, as though death was just around the corner. Countless black tentacles appeared on the cliff, entangling Lu Tianyu's body. Lu Tianyu's expression remained calm as he endured bitterly. After a long time, the black tentacles slowly faded away. Lu Tianyu's expression calmed down again. However, his face seemed even more aged, as though he had aged 10 years in an instant. Lu Tianyu shook his head and smiled bitterly. I originally thought that I could still hold on for a while. I did not expect that I would be unable to hold on so soon. Little friend, this is the last time this old man will ask of you. Please help me pass the divine weapon to that person. Hu Qi. Lu Tianyu waved his hand, and the wooden box containing the divine weapon flew towards him. Xiao Chun could not dodge in time, so he could only stretch out his hand and receive the wooden box. The wooden box felt heavy in his hand. It was clearly very heavy. Xiao Chun placed the wooden box at his feet and asked, "What happened earlier?" Lu Tianyu waved his hand and said, "It was just a high-ranked demon that occupied my body for 20 years. You don't have to bother about it. Unless the divine weapon is of the Saber Emperor's bloodline, it will not be able to bring out its true strength. It will not even be able to draw the saber. When the previous pavilion master handed it to me, he left behind a holy seal. Now, I'm passing it to you. When you need it, you can draw this divine weapon." Hu Qi. Lu Tianyu stretched out his hand and pointed. A resplendent holy seal appeared on his fingertip and flew into Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness. Xiao Chen was shocked. He could feel the resplendent holy seal in his sea of consciousness with his spiritual sense. When he looked carefully, he discovered that it was a drop of golden blood. It looks like this hot potato has fallen into my hands. Xiao Chun withdrew it and sighed to himself. Where's this person? How do I find him? What is his name? Xiao Chen asked. Lu Tianyu replied. He is the younger brother of the previous pavilion master. His name is Lung Tianhe. He left the Heavenly Saber Pavilion several decades ago. I do not know where he is, either. Xiao Chen really wanted to curse. He did not even know where this person was. How was he going to find him? Lu Tianyu smiled and said, I believe you will find him. Let's go quickly. After using the divine weapon recklessly, I have exhausted too much energy. I can no longer suppress him. Now, I have to seal myself in ice. A strong force pushed Xiao Chen down without any explanation. Frost slowly covered Lu Tianyu's body. The cold chi quickly spread out. Soon, he turned into an ice sculpture. The cold chi continued to spread out and soon covered the entire summit. In the next moment, the entire summit, including Lu Tianyu, was completely sealed in ice. Xiao Chun hugged the wooden box and quickly descended. A strong wind blew by his sides. When he saw the summit covered in frost, he felt very complicated. Xiao Chun placed the wooden box into his universe ring and quickly returned to his courtyard. Lu Riyue had not gone to sleep yet. She was standing quietly in the courtyard. Xiao Chen hesitated for a while before he told Lu Riyue everything that happened at the summit in full detail. Who knew that after Lu Riyue heard this, her expression did not change. She did not seem surprised. Lu Riyue smiled bitterly and explained, Back then, when he handed Qingyan to me, he told me that the high-ranked demon was a demon second only to the blood demon general. The demon's soul had been attached to his body for close to 20 years. Actually, he had been in pain all this while. He was just unwilling to tell me. Sealing him in ice might be the best outcome. Lu Riyue paused for a while before continuing. You don't have to worry too much about the divine weapon. If you place it in the wooden box, no one will sense it. Xiao Chun smiled gently and said, That is all I can do. There are so many people here. It is too difficult to find a person. You should sleep early. If there is a way to save your father in the future, I will think of a way to help. Lu Riyue nodded and said, In that case, thank you in advance. You should rest early as well. Don't give yourself too much pressure. Early the next morning, Xiao Chun continued to cultivate as usual. He did not put too much pressure on himself because of the divine weapon. However, he was not in a rush to cultivate the purple thunder divine incantation. Instead, he focused on the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. Since the purple thunder divine incantation met with resistance, he might as well focus on cultivating the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. In the back mountains, under a gushing waterfall, Xiao Chun sat cross-legged in the surging water. He used the strictest method to cultivate the final layer of dragon essence and tiger fierceness. The body-tempering art was much more arduous and difficult than the cultivation of cultivation techniques. Aside from the endless loneliness, the body had to endure tremendous pressure at all times. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion used a lot of manpower to repair the destroyed buildings. Within 7 days, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion completely restored the buildings to their former glory. At the same time, they released a piece of shocking news. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's young pavilion master, Lung Liu-Su, advanced to peak inferior grade Martial King at the age of 17. The Phoenix's Passion Palace, one of the 3 holy masters, would be sending experts to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion at the beginning of the next month to help the Heavenly Saber Pavilion seal the spatial crack. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion would be holding a grand, welcoming ceremony on the Heaven Ascending platform. At the same time, they would send out invitations to the various sects and clans within the Great Qi Nation to attend the ceremony. Unexpectedly, the legendary 3 holy masters would be coming to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Furthermore, they had produced an absolute genius who advanced to peak inferior grade Martial King at the age of 17. In an instant, the unfavorable rumors about the Heavenly Saber Pavilion vanished like smoke in thin air. The restless subordinate sects of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion immediately sent people to present gifts to show their loyalty. There were also many leaders of the major powers who personally paid a visit. They brought valuable gifts, hoping to form an alliance with the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion, which had many visitors, immediately became crowded. Chapter 350. This was the influence of the 3 holy masters. Just the news of them coming to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion immediately eliminated all the unfavorable rumors about the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When they passed by Saber City and saw the heads of the Divine Dragon Palace's 7 holy envoys, the shock in their hearts was indescribable. They became even more determined to form a good relationship with the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Chun, who had heard this news from Lu Suifeng, did not feel any change in his emotions. He only responded indifferently and ignored it. Seeing Xiao Chen's calm expression, Lu Suifeng said somewhat depressedly, "Yi Chun, why do you not seem surprised at all? The Phoenix's Passion Palace is one of the 3 holy masters' lands. This is one of the few big things that happened in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion in recent years." Xiao Chun smiled faintly. "Don't get agitated yet. Your sister told me about this long ago. I was already agitated once. Do you want me to be agitated again?" Lu Suifeng became even more depressed. Why is my sister so biased? She actually hid it from her little brother and refused to tell me. Xiao Chun smiled and said, "After I tell you, Chu Xinyun will know immediately. After that, the people of Jade Maiden Peak will know. After that, the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion will know." Lu Suifeng said innocently, "Do I look like someone who likes to be in the limelight?" Xiao Chun countered with a question. "Is that not the case?" Lu Suifeng was speechless. "Never mind, let's not talk about this. I heard that aside from the royal court, almost all the major powers in the Great Qi Nation will be there for the welcoming ceremony. All the outstanding youths of the Great Qi Nation will gather. At that time, there will be an even more exciting competition than the inter-disciple competition." Xiao Chun felt suspicious and asked, "Why? There are no prizes. What is the point of coming to the competition?" "Prizes?" Lu Suifeng smiled and said, "What kind of prize would be more enticing than being chosen by the Holy Land? Such things have happened before. The Holy Land has always been searching for genius cultivators. This is something that everyone knows. The Holy Land is the only power that systematically grasps ancient martial techniques. It is rumored that the place where the Holy Land is located is the place with the densest heaven and earth spiritual chi. If you cultivate there, your cultivation will skyrocket. Once you enter the Holy Land, your family and sect will be protected. Xiao Chan frowned slightly. If that was the case, Duan Muqing, Shi Feng, Huai Yunfei, Ji Changkong, Chu Chaoyan, and the others would probably come. For the sake of their respective clans, they would definitely show off in front of the Holy Land. I feel that you should work hard to fight for it. With your talent, it is very likely that you will be chosen by the Holy Land, Lu Suifeng said seriously. Xiao Chen thought for a while and said, "It's not realistic to think about this. It's better to cultivate on your own. It's better to advance steadily and surely. There are no shortcuts on the path of cultivation." Lu Suifeng thought about it and agreed. He said, "I will not disturb you anymore. Continue cultivating. Even if you do not enter the Holy Land, you should still work hard. If you can perform well in the competition, it would be more useful than getting first place among the inner disciples." When Xiao Chun heard this, he entered deep thought. "I want to get first place among the inner disciples because I want to make a name for Qingyun Peak. It looks like I have a better way to do so. Representing Qingyun Peak in the Great Qin Nation, defeating the outstanding talents of the various places and obtaining first place would have a better effect. Yes, it's decided," Xiao Chun thought to himself. "This is the last thing I should do before I leave the Heavenly Saber Pavilion." With a goal in mind, Xiao Chun worked even harder on his cultivation. He spent all his time on breaking through to the final layer of the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. He would do his best to completely cultivate the dragon tendon tiger bone before the end of the month, allowing his body to undergo a complete rebirth. The waterfall rushed down with a force of tens of thousands of kilograms. Xiao Chun sat cross-legged at the bottom of the waterfall. The rapid waterfall struck Xiao Chun at every moment. Every time it struck, the force would reach 5,000 kilograms of force. Even a regular martial king would not dare to try such a relentless attack for a long period of time. However, Xiao Chun was as calm as a rock. He closed his eyes and allowed the torrent to strike his body. The dragon and tiger body sculpting art circulated continuously in his body. Only under such high pressure could his body be in an excited state. Only then could the dragon and tiger body sculpting art make a breakthrough in a short time. Otherwise, if he relied on normal methods, he would need at least 3 months to succeed. After consuming the fasting pill, Xiao Chen no longer needed to eat or rest. He just sat under the waterfall day and night. The sun rose and set in the west. It was like Xiao Chen had forgotten about time. He cultivated bitterly day by day, day by day. He was already numb to the pain. All that was left was the thought of victory in his heart. He did his best to persevere. In the forest outside the waterfall, Lu Rua watched as Xiao Chun cultivated bitterly for 15 days without eating or drinking. Her eyes turned slightly moist and her heart ached. "Pa! Pa! Pa!" Lu Rua clenched her right fist and punched Lu Suifeng's back repeatedly. "It's all your fault, you bastard. Who asked you to talk about a competition with him? He is working so hard now. What if something happens to him?" Lu Suifeng begged for mercy. "Sis, I was wrong. Stop hitting me. I was really just saying it casually. I did not expect each Chun to work so hard." Pu Si. I flew over and joined the group beating up Lu Suifeng. She pouted and said, "Elder brother Suifeng is too bad. Elder brother Yi Chun has not eaten for 15 days. It's all your fault." Seeing me enraged by, Lu Suifeng wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He thought about the days I messed with him. He knew he could not stay here any longer, so he quickly left. How could I let him go so easily? She chased him through the forest, causing him to flee. Damn it, why am I so unlucky? Indeed, offending women is the most horrifying thing. Unexpectedly, I offended 2 in one go. As Lu Suifeng dodged by his attacks, he sighed, "Yi Chun, wake up quickly. If you still don't wake up, elder brother will die soon." Boom! Just at this moment, Xiao Chun, who was below the waterfall, suddenly opened his eyes. He shouted and his chi rushed to the sky. The torrential waterfall actually flowed in reverse under this roar, forming a wave that soared into the sky. The dragon and tiger body sculpting art reached great perfection. Bang! Bang! The final 2 acupoints on Xiao Chen's right arm opened. From now on, all 16 acupoints on his right arm were opened. Beams of azure light came from the Laogong acupoint on Xiao Chen's palm. Following that was the Daling acupoint, the Neguan acupoint, and the final 16 acupoints. The azure light gathered and formed an azure dragon. The azure light blasted the clothes on his arm into pieces, revealing Xiao Chen's smooth arm. After a while, all the azure light gathered in the flesh on his arm, forming a blue dragon tattoo on his right arm. The dragon's head was on his wrist, the dragon's body was on his arm, and the dragon's tail was on his shoulder. When Xiao Chen looked carefully, this blue dragon tattoo seemed to be alive. Every scale was very lifelike. The pitch-black eyes were tightly shut, as though they could open at any moment. The dragon's aura was very serene, as though it was in a deep sleep. However, Xiao Chen could feel the surging energy. When the blue dragon opened its eyes, it would be able to overturn rivers and seas, move mountains, and split rocks. He would be able to overturn rivers and seas, move mountains, and crack rocks. Even the heavens and earth would not be able to contain him. Hualala! After Xiao Chen exhausted his qi, the waterfall above him came crashing down again. The higher it flew, the greater the weight and force of the fall. This time, it was probably 25,000 kilograms of force. Xiao Chen did not show any fear. He looked at the waterfall above him and smiled gently. Then, he opened his palm and clenched it into a fist. The instant Xiao Chen clenched his fist, the bones in his hand crackled. With a thought, the vital qi in his meridians surged. Boom! Xiao Chen punched at the sky. A berserk fist wind carried a boundless aura as it surged forward. A formless energy split the waterfall in half. The surging waterfall immediately split into 2 halves on either side of Xiao Chen's body. The energy did not lose any momentum. After it split the waterfall, it soared into the sky. The energy pierced through a passing, flying spirit beast. It cried out miserably and fell to the ground. When Xiao Chen saw the might of this punch, he said indifferently, "In the past, a casual punch from me could reach 25,000 kilograms of force. That should have been enough to break through this waterfall. However, it was impossible to refine pure energy like essence. Now I have done it. This way, it will produce a huge might in actual combat." The waterfall grew endlessly. After it was split in half, it quickly mended again. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and turned into a beam of purple light. Then, he landed firmly on the riverbank. All the essence in Xiao Chen's body trembled. All the water on his body and in his clothes immediately evaporated. His entire body became very dry. This caused Xiao Chen, who had been soaking in the water for the past half-month, to feel incredibly comfortable. He felt an indescribable, carefree feeling. When Lu Suifeng saw Xiao Chen leaping out of the water, his face immediately filled with a smile. He quickly ran over to Xiao Chen and smacked Xiao Chen's shoulder. "Yi Chen, you finally came out. If you still did not come out, your elder brother Suifeng would have died. Io, why is your shoulder so hard?" Before Lu Suifeng could finish speaking, he immediately cried out in pain. He held his right hand, which he used to smack Xiao Chen, and flung it around. In the heat of the moment, Lu Suifeng used 70 to 80% of his strength. In the end, it was like he had struck a heavy piece of frost iron. His entire palm was red and swollen. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He checked his body with his consciousness. The dragon and tiger body sculpting art was still circulating on its own. Xiao Chen had already been reborn. His meridians were like dragon veins. His bones were tougher than a tiger's. After the dragon and tiger body sculpting art circulated, his body could be said to be even harder than steel. He could not control his strength. It would automatically rebound back to the person who attacked him. After Xiao Chen checked the situation, he immediately stopped circulating the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. He smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I forgot to stop earlier. It's fine now. How about you punch me again?" Lu Suifeng looked at his swollen palm. How could he dare to continue? Wasn't that just seeking trouble for himself? Lu Suifeng shook his head vigorously and smiled embarrassedly. There's no need. There's no need. I appreciate your kind intentions. I'll leave first. This time, I nearly died because of you. Elder brother Yi Chun, you finally came out. I was so worried about you. Lu Rue, who was following behind Lu Suifeng, immediately flew over and hugged Xiao Chun. When Xiao Chun felt the girl's soft body, he felt slightly embarrassed. This was especially so since he was in front of Lu Ruyue. He blushed slightly and put Bai down. Don't hug me like this in front of so many people. The pressure is too great. Chapter 351. Bai's eyes were filled with doubt. He asked curiously, there's a lot of pressure. Is Bai very heavy? Lu Rue slowly walked over and smiled gently. How could Bai be heavy? It is just someone who is embarrassed. Xiao Chun smiled awkwardly. He looked at the two of them and said, sorry for making you worry. While cultivating, although Xiao Chen's mind was completely immersed in cultivation, his divine sense had always spread out in the surroundings, so he knew the situation outside like the back of his hand. Lu Riyue's actions caused Xiao Chun to feel somewhat apologetic. If such a dangerous matter was seen by someone who cared for him, they would definitely be worried. At that time, he would not be able to consider everything. Lu said softly, there is no need to be so pretentious between us. Come, let's go back and rest first. The three of them slowly walked back. Along the way, Bai was the most active among the three of them. He talked about all kinds of things and asked questions that made people not know whether to laugh or cry. The atmosphere was very relaxed. Time flew, and soon it was the end of the month. During this period, Xiao Chun was not as crazy as before. Every day, Xiao Chun would only spend half a day cultivating. He would spend the rest of his time with Bai and Lu Ruyue, wandering around the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. After being in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion for such a long time, Xiao Chun had not taken a good look around the Heavenly Saber Pavilion yet. Perhaps he would not have the chance to be as free as he was now. Thus, when Lu Ruyue suggested walking around, Xiao Chun did not hesitate and immediately agreed. As it neared the end of the month, the atmosphere of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was extremely busy. Occasionally, experts from various places would come over. These were all solitary cultivators or some of the smaller sects or clans. They did not receive an invitation from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Chun had brought many gifts, hoping that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would give him an invitation. He wanted to show his face at the welcoming ceremony to see if he could leave an impression on the people of the Holy Land. Some sects had especially outstanding disciples, so they were even more eager for an invitation. If the people of the Holy Land were interested in their disciples, they would definitely be able to enter the Holy Land. That clan or sect would immediately become a first-rate or second-rate faction in the Great Qi Nation. According to tradition, every time a Holy Land took away a person, the Holy Land would not be able to take them away. Most importantly, they would receive the protection of a Holy Land, and no one would dare to cause trouble for them. Xiao Chen's Holy Land would protect them, and no one would dare to make trouble for them. The endless stream of people made the disciples at the foot of the heaven viewing platform with their flying spirit beasts earn so many spirit stones that their hands went limp. Almost as soon as he picked up one person, another customer came to his door immediately. The sky-gazing mountain was high and steep. If one walked up, even if they ran at full speed, it would take a regular cultivator at least half a day. How could these anxious people bear it? Naturally, they all fought to become flying spirit beasts. Xiao Chun looked at the foot of the heaven viewing platform and the people holding on a hope. He sighed ruefully. The charm of the Holy Land is truly extraordinary. Just one news can shake up the entire Great Qi Nation. Lu, who was at the side, said softly, it can't be helped. In the eyes of ordinary people, the Holy Lands are like gods. With tens of thousands of years of inheritance, this kind of reverence is already ingrained in their bones. When Xiao Chun heard this, he frowned slightly and said softly, how can the path of a martial artist be pinned on the gods? Let's go somewhere else. There is nothing much to see here. Lu Riyue could feel the sharpness and drive in Xiao Chen's words. She was mildly astonished. Xiao Chan did not seem to care much about the Holy Land. In that case, let's go and take a look at other places. There's still a good place in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion that you have not been to yet. Lu Riyue smiled gently. After a while, the two of them arrived at the summit of a mountain. The mountain was more than 10,000 meters tall, which astonished even Xiao Chan. After walking 1,000 meters from the middle of the mountain, the entire mountain was shrouded in clouds. When they arrived at the summit, it felt like they were strolling in the clouds. After flying for so long, the two of them felt somewhat fatigued. When they arrived at the summit, they immediately sat down to rest. Looking at the boundless churning clouds, Lu Riyue had a melancholic look in her eyes. She said softly, "Yi Chun, the people from the Holy Land will be here in 3 days. You'll be leaving the Heavenly Saber Pavilion after the competition, right?" To Xiao Chun, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was just a relay station. Lu Riyue knew long ago that he would not stop at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. After learning listening to the sword and communicating with it, Xiao Chun should have left already. However, he did not. Lu Riyue clearly knew that it was because he wanted to repay her kindness. Perhaps he might even have some reluctance to leave. When Xiao Chun heard this, his expression did not change much. This was a problem that had troubled him for a long time in the past. However, when Lu Riyue chopped down that tree that night, he had already thought it through. Humans had 7 emotions and 6 desires. If they suppressed it, a heart demon would appear. On the path of a cultivator, emotions were not a stumbling block for them. Xiao Chun did not know that when he thought of this, he had unknowingly cleared the biggest obstacle in a cultivator's life: emotions. Emotions were difficult to overcome. In history, there were many experts and geniuses. However, too many of them fell because of emotions. They suppressed their emotions in the depths of their hearts. There were even some resolute people who cut off their emotions and walked the path of cultivation alone. When they reached the bottleneck of the peak, a heart demon would appear. In the end, they would never be able to cross that bottleneck. In the end, they would never be able to reach the peak. After muttering to himself for a while, Xiao Chun looked at Lu Riyue and said seriously, "Riyue, I like you. One day, I will not let Qinyun Peak become a burden to you. I will bring you along with me." When Lu Riyue heard this, she blushed slightly. She did not expect the normally reserved and somewhat wooden Xiao Chun to say such bold words. Lu Riyue was stunned for a long time, unable to say anything. Seeing Lu Riyue lowering her head in silence, Xiao Chun suddenly laughed loudly. Lu Riyue raised her head and looked at Xiao Chun. Her gaze was filled with doubt as she asked, "What are you laughing at?" Xiao Chun did not stop laughing. He continued, "Riyue, I really like you. I'm really an idiot. Only now do I realize that I like you even more than I imagined. Actually, I should have said this long ago. Whether you are willing or not, I like you. If you are willing to wait for me, one day, with my strength, I will not let Qinyun Peak become a burden to you. I like you, Lu Riyue. I like you. I like you. I like your every word and smile. I like everything about you. I like how you treat me. I really like you." Xiao Chun suddenly said loudly. His voice was like rushing thunder, echoing 10,000 meters in the sky. The words, "I like you," caused the boundless clouds to scatter. They lingered in Lu Riyue's ears for a long time. Lu Riyue blushed. She covered Xiao Chun's mouth and said, "Don't be so loud. I know you like me." Xiao Chun looked at Lu Riyue, whose eyes were slightly moist. He gently removed her right hand from his mouth and held it tightly. Lu Riyue held Xiao Chun's hand. When she felt the temperature of his palm, her tears turned into a smile. She said softly, "I believe you can do it. I will wait for you at Qinyun Peak until you return." Xiao Chun gently pulled Lu Riyue's hand and pulled her into his embrace. The two of them did not say anything as they hugged each other tightly. 3 days later, the grand welcoming ceremony finally began. The entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion was immersed in a joyous atmosphere. All the inner disciples woke up early on this day. Xiao Chun was the same. Before the sky brightened, he had already put on his clothes and started practicing his saber techniques in the courtyard. There would definitely be a huge battle today. Be it duamyuking, mu qing xue, shi feng, yin qi xue, hua yun fei, or ji changkong, they were all outstanding talents whose names shook the region. Although Xiao Chun was confident that he could defeat them one by one, he did not dare to be careless. A cool breeze rustled and saber lights flickered. Xiao Chun executed all the martial techniques he knew. Of course, he only executed them once and did not use too much essence. Otherwise, if he executed them all, this courtyard would probably be destroyed. When Xiao Chun finished executing them, Lu Rue, who had appeared at an unknown time, held a folded white robe in her hands. She had a faint smile on her face as she looked at Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun looked at the white robe in Lu Rue's hands and felt a strange energy coming from it. He asked suspiciously, "Rue, what is this?" Lu Rue explained, "This is a secret treasure, one of the treasures of Qinyan Peak. It is called the Clear Wind Robe. After you wear it, it can increase your speed by 10% in all aspects. Be it dodging speed, attacking speed, or running speed, they will all increase by 10%. The most important thing is that it does not require you to expend any energy. It will automatically display its effects at all times." Xiao Chun received the white clear wind robe and revealed a joyful expression. If he had only heard the first part, it would not have been a big deal. It would only increase his speed by 10%. However, with the last part, this clear wind robe was worthy of being called a treasure. It did not require any essence to display its effects at all times. It was equivalent to permanently increasing a cultivator's movement technique by 10%. Furthermore, it would increase as the cultivator's speed increased. There was no limit. When used together with Xiao Chen's windwalk shoes, it was a perfect match. Don't just stand there. Quickly put it on and familiarize yourself with it, Lu Rue said as she gently pushed Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun smiled faintly and nodded. He took the white robe and walked to the bedroom. Then, he took off his jacket and changed into the clear wind robe. After Xiao Chun put on the robe and fastened his belt, he looked at himself in the mirror. In the mirror, Xiao Chun was dressed in white robes. His complexion was pale, and there was a blue strip of cloth tied around his head. After the Scarlet Throne's mark was covered, Xiao Chen's aura became very otherworldly. Compared to his usual aura, there was an additional scholarly aura. This completely covered up all of Xiao Chen's killing intent. This was only the change in appearance. What shocked Xiao Chun even more was the internal change when he put on the robes. When he put on the robe, thin energy lines that could not be seen by the naked eye immediately shot down from the surface of the white cloth. They entered his skin through his pores and quickly connected with all the cells and meridians in Xiao Chen's body. Xiao Chun waved his hand. He immediately felt that his waving speed was much faster than usual. He raised his leg and took a step forward. Who knew? This step was much faster than he expected. He lost his balance and nearly fell over. This was because his speed had suddenly increased by 10%. Before his body could get used to it, Xiao Chun quickly understood the reason behind it. Chapter 352. Xiao Chun was not unfamiliar with this phenomenon. In the past, when the dragon and tiger body sculpting art advanced, his strength would increase as well. After that, his body needed some time to get used to it. However, an increase of 10% was not much. After 5 minutes, Xiao Chun had gotten used to this speed. He pushed open the door and slowly walked out. When Lu Rue saw the white-robed Xiao Chun, her eyes lit up. She smiled gently and said, "I did not expect white clothes to suit you. I feel that you should wear white in the future." Bai, who had just come out of the house, stretched his body. When he saw the white-robed Xiao Chun, he ran over and smiled. "Elder brother Yi Chun, you look better today." Xiao Chun smiled faintly. "Very well. I will listen to you. I will wear white in the future." After the three of them washed up and ate breakfast, Lu Suifeng led Xiao Meng and Xiao Yang to Xiao Chen's courtyard. When Lu Suifeng saw the white-robed Xiao Chun, he was about to step forward and pat him out of habit. However, he remembered the previous encounter and quickly withdrew his hand. He smiled and said, "Yi Chun, you look pretty good today. You will definitely be able to achieve victory. After you make a name for yourself, you might even obtain the title of White-Robed Bladesman." Lu, who was at the side, said, "Don't just talk about Xiao Chun. You have to perform well today as well. Don't embarrass our Qinyan Peak." When Lu Suifeng heard this, he quickly changed the topic. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Don't say anything. Let's quickly go to the heaven viewing platform first." Lu Suifeng led the way, and Xiao Chun and the others followed closely behind. After they descended the mountain, they immediately headed for the heaven viewing platform. There was a lot of people along the way. They were all disciples heading for the heaven viewing platform. This time, almost all of them were inner disciples. This included those who were in closed-door training or those who went out on experiential training. They all returned to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. This was several times grander than the previous core disciple exam. The main road was very lively, and the sounds of discussion never stopped for a moment. Up in the sky, countless spiritual beasts flew towards the sky viewing platform, as though they were covering the entire sky. In addition to the disciples of the sect, most of them were small forces that had received invitations. Generally, large forces would have their own warships. He would definitely not ride a flying spirit beast. Even if he did, he would ride a flying spirit beast of rank 6 or above. Only then would he be worthy of his status. Occasionally, there would be a few strong auras flying over the heads of the crowd. The martial king experts, who were normally hard to come by, were actually nothing more than street goods today. With a quick glance, Xiao Chun saw several peak martial kings. There were even quite a few peak martial kings. Suddenly, an extremely powerful aura flew over everyone's head. It was an old man in a black robe, and he flashed through the air with a young man. Sensing this powerful aura, Xiao Chun couldn't help but take another look. That person gave him the feeling that he was a long sword that could cut through the sky, radiating light in all directions, unstoppable. Even though this person had only released his aura unintentionally, Xiao Chun felt a horrifying pressure. The person who went over earlier seems to be Feng Shuani. I did not expect him to come personally. The young man he is bringing seems to be his grandson. I heard that his talent is very shocking. I guess he is here to try his luck. The attraction of a holy land is really great. I remember when the Misty Sword sect master wanted to take his grandson as his final disciple. He was rejected by this old man. Isn't that for sure? How can a sect like the Misty Sword sect compare to a true holy land? It is not even worth mentioning. The people beside Lu Suifeng watched the old man leave. As they walked, they discussed. When Xiao Chun heard this, he felt curious. He asked Lu Suifeng, "Who is this Feng Shuani? He seems very famous." Lu Suifeng explained, "That person is a famous swordsman in the Great Qin nation. He is not even 70 years old, but he is already a martial monarch. I heard that he's the most likely person to become a sword sage in recent years. However, he is independent and does not belong to any power." No wonder Xiao Chun felt so much pressure. It turned out that Feng Shuani was a sword monarch. A holy land was indeed a holy land. Even cultivators who had the chance to advance to sword sage could not resist the temptation. As Xiao Chun continued forward, he met a few peak experts like Feng Shuani along the way. There were even more half-step martial monarchs. Xiao Chun saw at least 10 of them. It looked like it was as Lu Suifeng said. All the experts of the Great Qi Nation were here. At the foot of the heaven viewing platform, there was no way to ride a flying spirit beast. There were simply too many people going up the mountain. Often, when a disciple with a flying spirit beast picked up a guest, a large group of people would immediately surround him. There was no way to snatch the spirit beast away. When Lu Suifeng saw all this, he sighed and said, "It looks like we can only walk up. The heaven viewing platform is high and steep. Even if we travel at full speed, it will take us at least 2 hours." Lu Yue said softly, "There is no need to go through so much trouble. Xiao Chun and I can just fly up with 2 people each. Although it is slower than flying at full speed, it is much faster than walking up." That was a good idea. Just like that, Xiao Chun carried Lu Suifeng and Xiao Yang. Lu Yue carried Xiao Meng and Bai. They slowly flew up together. After 1 hour, the 6 of them slowly landed on the heaven viewing platform. The crowd on the heaven viewing platform was much denser than at the foot of the mountain. The 6 of them were nearly separated by the crowd. There were several newly built arenas on the largest drill grounds of the heaven viewing platform. The arenas were all made of the hard heavenly mountain stone. Then, a layer of frost iron was poured on the surface. Only a large sect like the Heavenly Saber Pavilion could spend so much money to water the arenas with frost iron. The surroundings of the drill grounds were filled with spectator stands from low to high. The spectator stand were already filled with cultivators. Aside from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples, there were even more cultivators who came from other places. The place was densely packed with people. The rostrum at the very front of the drill grounds had already been expanded. It was now twice the size of the previous rostrum. Behind the rostrum was a row of tables and chairs that were clearly higher than the previous ones. The elders of the Elders' Assembly had already taken their seats. If one looked carefully, they would discover that the first elder, Jiang Qi, who usually sat in the middle, was not sitting in the middle. Instead, he was sitting on a chair at the side. On both sides of the rostrum, there were many simple but very grand tea tables. It would not be a problem to seat thousands of people. On the left side were the seats for the people of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Tianyue Peak was the closest to the rostrum. Next was Ganyu Peak, Jade Maiden Peak, and Qianwan Peak. The 7 peaks were arranged in order from strongest to weakest. Aside from Qingyan Peak, the people of the other 6 peaks were all present. These peaks had their own warships. It was not strange for them to be faster. There were even more tea tables on the right side. There were at least a dozen of them. The people seated, there were all the clans of the Great Qin nation. The weakest of them was a power like the White Water City's Jiang clan. The few tea tables near the rostrum were empty. This was prepared by the Heavenly Saber Pavilion for the noble clans and large sections. Without a certain amount of strength and resources, it was impossible to get close. Little brother Jiang, when will the people from the Holy Land fall? The one who spoke was the sword monarch, Feng Shuani. His tea table was on the right side. Currently, he was the closest to the rostrum. Only someone of his status would dare to address Jiang Qi as little brother. Jiang Qi did not get angry at such a form of address. The other party was much stronger than him. Logically speaking, he should be a junior. Jiang Qi smiled gently and said, "Brother Feng, don't be impatient. The people from the Holy Land arrived yesterday. They are currently checking the bones of our young pavilion master." Feng Shuani picked up the teacup on the tea table and took a sip. He said, "Let me congratulate little brother Jiang Qi first. This time, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion has produced an absolute genius." At the age of 17, he became a peak inferior grade Martial King. In the future, he will definitely regain his glory. That's right. Congratulations, Elder Jiang Qi. The group of family heads and solitary experts on the right said in unison. Jiang Qi smiled faintly and responded to them one by one. He was clearly in a good mood. Just at this moment, a pure black warship flew over from the sky. A black banner fluttered on the bow of the warship. There was a flamboyant G character on the banner. The people from the Nanling Province's G clan are here. The person standing on the bow seems to be the genius of the G clan, Ji Changkong. The people and the spectator stand around the drill grounds exclaimed. After a while, another warship slowly flew towards the platform. It was the Hua clan of the Dongming Province's inherited noble clan. Not long after, a huge ice bird carrying an ice palace on its back slowly flew over everyone's heads. It's the Duanmu clan's profound ice palace. Duanmuking is here as well. The Gi Marquis of the royal court, Ing Shao, is here as well. The Gi Marquis is a genius with a holy weapon. I wonder how he will perform this time. The Night Spirit Palace's warship is here as well. The 2 geniuses of the Nanling province, Mu Chengxue and Ji Changkong, are here as well. Heavens! The Misty Sword Sect's King Grade warship is here as well. Could it be that their sect master is here as well? The 3 great sects are all here. This is definitely the first time in the history of the Great Qin nation. The crowd was completely excited. These strong, noble clans and sects that normally dominated their regions were all here. More importantly, the geniuses of these sects were all here as well. More than 100 geniuses gathered in one place. Just thinking about it made the people below excited. Soon, the tea tables on the right were filled with people. As expected, the table closest to the platform was occupied by the Misty Sword sect, followed by the Night Spirit Palace. In the end, the Misty Sword sect's sect master did not come. Instead, the Misty Sword sect's first elder, Ling Chun, came. He was a half-step martial monarch. His position in the sect was second only to the sect master. His status was similar to Jiang Qi's. Ling Chun glanced at Feng Shuani, who was not far away. He smiled gently and said, "Senior Feng, my sect master once personally came to take your grandson as his final disciple. However, Senior did not agree. Now that the Holy Land is here, you come uninvited. Isn't this a little too much?" Feng Shuani's old face glistened with divine light. He did not look old at all. When he heard Ling Chen's words, he said indifferently, "This old man admires the Misty Sword sect's sect master's attainments in swordsmanship. However, it is not to the point of reverence. My grandson's talent is even higher than mine. In the future, he will definitely become a sword monarch. If he does not have the confidence to become a sword sage, I will not let him enter any sect. I will teach him myself." Chapter 353. Beside him sat a green-clothed youth, about 17 or 18 years old. He had delicate features and looked like a youth. However, his temperament was very calm. When he heard the older generation talk about him, his expression did not change at all. He was like a silent sword. Ling Chun smiled gently and glanced at the silent youth. He ignored him, but he felt it was unfortunate. This youth's talent was only slightly inferior to Chu Chaoyan's. At a tea table at the back, Duan Yuking's cold and beautiful face was expressionless. He was looking at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion tea table in front, searching for something. When Ji Changkong saw Duan Yuking's gaze, he smiled gently and said, "Miss Duanmu, who are you looking for?" Duan Yuking withdrew her gaze and said indifferently, "Are you still not clear who I am looking for?" Hua Yunfei, who was at the side, took over the conversation and said, "It seems like that person has not arrived yet. I did not see him make a move the last time. Who knows? We might be able to confirm his identity this time." In the past year, many outer disciples of the noble clans had died a violent death. Someone had chopped off their heads. It was clear that someone had taken them to the Flying Snow Mountain Manor to claim the bounty. To these noble clans, it was not a serious matter. However, it caused the noble clans to lose a lot of their prestige. Furthermore, after more than a year, the noble clans had not even found a trace of Xiao Chun. They were a joke to the world. Duan Yuking said sullenly, "Everyone should have no doubts about the agreement we made before we came, right?" A murderous intent flashed in Hua Yunfei's eyes. He said fiercely, "Don't worry, this fellow killed several elders of my clan. If we can confirm it, I, Hua Yunfei, will be the first to step forward." Ji Changkong's gaze was calm as he said indifferently, "He killed my uncle. Mother already gave me the order to kill him." Chu Chaoyan, who was at the very front, saw all this. There was a look of mockery in the depths of his eyes. However, he hid it very well. Almost no one noticed it. At the tea table beside the Misty Sword sect, Mu Qingxue gently held his teacup. Occasionally, he would glance at the empty tea table on the left. That was the tea table reserved for Qingyun Peak. Beside him, Mu Yanxue and Shi Feng sat quietly. In order to be closer to the people from the sacred grounds, Shi Feng didn't choose the Shi family's table this time. Instead, he wanted to bask in the glory of the Night Spirit Palace, so he sat at the second table on the right. "Eldest senior brother, it seems that fellow hasn't come out yet. You promised to teach him a lesson on my behalf. You won't go back on your word, will you?" Shi Feng said with a gloomy expression. Mu Qingxue smiled faintly. The copper mirror in the depths of his eyes spun continuously. He placed the teacup on the table and said, "Don't worry. You gave me 1,000 medial-grade spirit stones. I will not take your things for nothing." The leader of the Night Spirit Palace this time was the first elder of the sect. He sat at the very front of the tea table. When he heard Mu Qingxue's words, he frowned slightly and said, "Qingxue, whether the Night Spirit Palace can form a connection with the Holy Land or not depends on you and Mu Yanxue. Don't spoil the important matter because of your personal grudges." Mu Qingxue replied respectfully. First Elder is right. However, I will help Junior Brother Sure as well. I will help him vent his anger and let the people of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion know that the people of our Night Spirit Palace are not so easily bullied. The First Elder nodded and said, I heard about Sure Feng's matter as well. He has indeed tarnished the reputation of the Night Spirit Palace. It would be good for you to teach this person a lesson. On the streets of the Heaven Viewing Platform, Xiao Chun, who was bravely advancing through the crowd, did not know that before he appeared, he had already attracted the attention of countless people. Lu Ryu looked at the crowd and said, Yi Chun, there are too many people. This is a waste of time. Let's work together to open a path. Xiao Chun already had this intention long ago. The crowd was so crowded that it made him feel frustrated. The two of them immediately released their energy and formed a cone-shaped shockwave. The two ferocious energies merged together and immediately opened a wide path through the crowd. The group ignored the curses of the people around them and increased their speed by several times. Lu Suifeng smiled and said, We should have done this long ago. When Yi Chun and I fight for Qinyan Peak and perform well, we will go to the Elders' Assembly to request a flying warship. In the future, we will not have to be so annoying. 10 minutes later, the group of 6 finally arrived at the gates of the drill grounds. Lu Ryue handed over her golden identity token. After Lu Ryue handed over her golden identity token, the disciples outside immediately led the 6 to a secret path. They did not lead them to the spectator stands like the others. The exit of the secret path was actually behind the platform. That disciple said respectfully, Marshal Aunt Lu, let's go up quickly. The elders have been waiting for a long time already. After Lu Ryue expressed her thanks, she led the 5 of them to the limestone steps of the platform. Before they reached the platform, Xiao Chun could feel strong auras. There were even a few that he was familiar with. After climbing the long flight of stairs, the group finally arrived at the top. Xiao Chun immediately felt countless gazes filled with ill intent directed at him. Xiao Chun looked down and remained calm. He ignored all these gazes. Ryue is late. First Elder, please forgive me, Lu Rue said to Jiang Qi, who was on the platform, with a cupped fist salute. Jiang Qi smiled gently and said, You are not late. The people from the Holy Land have not arrived yet. Take a seat first. I am filled with anticipation for Yi Chun. After everyone sat down, servants immediately placed some snacks and fruits on the table. Then, they filled the teacups with water. When Xiao Chun saw the figure of the Biyun Peak's Peak Master, Song Ke, a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He gave Song Ke a deep look before withdrawing his gaze. Now is not the time to deal with this person. Without an elder's guarantee, if he killed this person, he would offend the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Song Ke, who had his back to Xiao Chun, felt like someone had used a sharp knife to carve his back. It was incomparably painful. It must be the brat's killing intent. To think it is so horrifying. Song Ke clenched his remaining fist tightly. His heart was filled with hatred. When Xiao Chun walked onto the platform, the delicate youth beside Feng Shuani raised his eyebrows slightly. A sharp gleam appeared in his calm eyes. He could not help but release his sword intent. What's going on? I can't control my sword intent. The youth was shocked. He looked at Xiao Chun with caution. Sword intent would only react like this when it felt danger or a strong killing intent, protecting its master from danger. However, the youth did not feel any killing intent from Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun was dressed in white robes and had a calm expression. There were no fluctuations in his emotions at all. The youth frowned slightly. He could not figure it out no matter how he thought about it. So he whispered into Feng Shuani's ear. When Feng Shuani heard this, he felt it was strange as well. He looked at Xiao Chun with a deep gaze. It was like a sharp sword tearing through space, trying to see through Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun moved his spiritual sense and immediately felt a strong mental energy sweep past him. The strong spiritual sense turned into a sharp blade and sliced through this mental energy. After that, he quickly formed a protective barrier around his body, preventing the other party's mental energy from probing him again. At the same time, he extended his spiritual sense along with the other party's mental energy, trying to find out who was spying on him. This series of actions happened in the time it took for a spark to fly. Xiao Chen only needed a thought to complete it. It was shockingly fast. However, the other party had abandoned this strand of mental energy, making it impossible for him to track it. After Xiao Chen's spiritual sense scanned the air once, he could only return helplessly. However, he maintained the protective barrier formed by his spiritual sense. As Xiao Chen looked at the crowd, he felt somewhat suspicious. Who exactly was it that was spying on him? That strong mental energy from earlier was on a completely different level compared to a regular martial king. Only a half-step martial monarch or a martial monarch would have such an ability. Half-step martial monarchs and martial monarchs were not people that Xiao Chen could afford to offend. Even if he found them, it would be useless. I'll just keep an eye on them. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and ignored them. On the other side, when Feng Shuani saw Xiao Chen's reaction speed and his strong mental energy, he was shocked speechless. He had not expected Xiao Chen to react so quickly. However, he finally understood why his grandson's sword intent had erupted uncontrollably. Feng Tsen, when you meet this person later, be careful. This person is hiding an extremely strong state of massacre. Your will of the sword has already reached small perfection. You can feel a threat from him, which is why you automatically protected yourself. Feng Shuani projected his voice and told Feng Tsen everything he saw. Originally, he had intended to observe a little more. Who knew? Xiao Chen's reaction was too fast. Furthermore, his mental energy was strangely strong. Feng Shuani only managed to see something related to the state of massacre. While waiting for the people from the Holy Land to arrive, the crowd at the tea table started chatting. After all, there were so many geniuses. Normally, it was rare for them to gather together and discuss the problems of martial cultivation. This would be beneficial to everyone. About an hour later, a red sun suddenly appeared in the clouds 10,000 meters high in the sky. When the crowd looked up carefully, they discovered that it was not a real sun. Instead, it was a huge, fiery red bird connected from head to tail. Every feather carried a scarlet flame. It was blazing and boundlessly resplendent. With one glance, it looked like another sun. The air in the drill grounds immediately turned scorching hot. It was like all the air had been burned dry, making breathing difficult. Chi, a melodious phoenix cry resounded. The vermilion bird spread its wings and soared. Instantly, the might of an ancient holy beast spread throughout the drill grounds. Many experts felt a wave of pressure. The martial spirits in their bodies stirred restlessly. They felt an instinctive fear from the depths of their hearts. Their essence became chaotic, rampaging through their bodies uncontrollably. Their meridians ached dully. The cultivators quickly suppressed the chaotic essence in their bodies and stabilized their minds, controlling their restless martial spirits. The fiery red vermilion bird gently flapped its wings and withdrew its divine might. The crowd immediately felt the pressure on them lessen. All the discomfort they felt vanished, and they felt much more relaxed. This is the holy beast vermilion bird. What a horrifying pressure. Fortunately, it only lasted for an instant. Otherwise, I would not be able to suppress my martial spirit any longer. Even before the battle, my essence is in chaos, and my martial spirit is already out of control. If I clash with the people from the Holy Land, I will probably be defeated in one move. Chapter 354. The people of the Holy Land are indeed not people we can guess at. They are too strong. The crowd and the spectator stands all looked up to the sky. When they saw the beautiful scarlet vermilion bird, their eyes were filled with fanaticism and awe. Compared to the others, Xiao Chen did not feel anything. He did not feel any pressure at all. Song Ke had already shattered his martial spirit, and it was hidden in more than 300 acupoints in his body. There was only one chi whirlpool left in his body. Hence, his expression was calm. Everything was normal. Looking at the fiery red vermilion bird in the sky, Xiao Chen's lips curled up in a mocking smile. This is interesting. The moment he appeared, he used the aura of a holy beast to put on a show of strength. He wanted everyone to know who the main character was. Now, it circled around in the air a few times but still refused to come down. Does it like the attention of the crowd that much? Boom! 5 minutes later, the vermilion bird circling in the sky turned into a beam of fiery light and landed on the platform. In a breath of time, it landed firmly on the ground. 5 people wearing long red robes appeared before the crowd. There was a golden vermilion bird embroidered on their robes, covering their entire body. There was an old man and 4 youthful boys and girls. There were 2 males and 2 females. The males were handsome and elegant, and the females were beautiful and pure. They were very pleasing to look at. There was no aura scattered. The energy from the fall of 10,000 meters was perfectly merged into the ground, vanishing into thin air. This showed their strong control over their strength. Xiao Chun was rather impressed by this move. If it were him, he would not be able to do it so casually and naturally. The first elder, Jiang Qi, quickly stood up. He had a respectful expression and some anticipation as he asked the old man, "Elder Yin, how is our young master's talent?" The old man with the family name, Yin, smiled gently and said, "His aptitude is excellent. He can cultivate in the Phoenix's Passion Palace for 3 years. If his comprehension ability is high, he might even become a core disciple of the Phoenix's Passion Palace." The group of Heavenly Saber Pavilion elders all had smiles on their faces. Even a usually calm Jiang Qi had an excited expression on his face. "Many thanks, Elder Yin." Jiang Qi cupped his hands in thanks. "Greetings, Elder Yin." The clan heads and elders on the platform reacted and immediately stood up. They cupped their hands in greeting to the Phoenix's Passion Palace's elder. Elder Yin raised his hand slightly. The smile on his face did not diminish, making him look very amiable. However, there was an undetectable hint of arrogance in his words. He said, "Everyone, there is no need to be so polite. I am only an outer elder of the Phoenix's Passion Palace." After everyone sat down, they discovered that the people from the Holy Land were much more amiable than they had imagined. Their favorable impression of the Holy Land increased even further. Xiao Chen's eyes were as sharp as lightning. He caught a flash of arrogance in the old man's eyes. The arrogance of the youths behind him was even more obvious. The Phoenix's Passion Yin slowly sat down and said softly, "The Phoenix's Holy Land. Sect's Holy Land sect, Palace's sect." At the same time, I wanted to see if there were any geniuses that could be excavated in the Great Qi Nation. That was why I asked Elder Jiang to help me invite everyone here. Feng Shuani asked softly, "Elder Yin, can you tell us more about the sacred ground selection criteria?" Elder Yin replied, "It is similar to what everyone is thinking. There will be a competition that will allow us to see the actual combat abilities of the cultivators. After that, we will measure their aptitude. However, there is a threshold before that." "What threshold?" Feng Shuani asked. Elder Yin glanced behind him, and a young man immediately walked out. This person's name is Luo Li. He is ranked within the top 100 of our Phoenix's Passion Palace's outer disciples. As long as you can exchange 10 moves with him, you will be qualified to participate in the grand competition. Otherwise, if there are too many of them, it will be troublesome. When the crowd heard that Xiao Chun had only exchanged 10 moves with an outer disciple, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. This person was only a superior grade martial saint. He should have no problem exchanging 10 moves. Luo Li sneered in his heart when he saw everyone's expressions. This group of lowly people really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Do they really think that it's so easy to last 10 moves against me? Luo Li pushed his feet off the ground and moved through the air in a red arc. Then, he landed firmly on Arena. Wherever it passed, the red sparks on a streamline would linger for a long time. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Elder Yin nodded and said, "Let's begin. If you are confident in your strength, you can come forward and give it a try. Those who can last 10 moves will be qualified to participate in the grand competition." Elder Yan's voice was not loud, but it was exceptionally clear. Every cultivator in the spectator stands could hear it clearly. As long as one could last 10 moves, they would be qualified to participate in the grand competition. When they heard this, almost all the cultivators were tempted. Their expressions were filled with excitement. Although they knew that the Phoenix's Passion Palace disciples were extraordinary, if it was only 10 moves, most of the cultivators felt that they could give it a try. Who? A gray figure descended from the spectators' stands and landed firmly on the ground. It was a cultivator who was confident in his own strength and had come to test his moves. This gray-robed cultivator was no older than 20 years old. He had a squarish face, thick eyebrows, and large eyes. He looked very ordinary and had a sword hanging at his waist. However, his eyes were spirited and his steps were majestic. With one look, it was clear that he was an expert. This person performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Xia Province's Flowing Clouds Sexy Fan. Please give me some pointers." So, it is the Flowing Cloud Sect's Elon. This Flowing Cloud Sect is considered a large sect in the Xia Province. Yi Fan is the strongest person in this sect. If he makes a move, he should be able to test out the strength of the Holy Land's people. Elon has been a medial grade martial saint for a long time. He should not have any problems enduring 10 moves. If even he cannot do it, then half of the people here will be eliminated. Some of the people who recognized Elon started discussing in soft voices. Luo Li wore red robes, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. A look of disdain flashed in his eyes as he said indifferently, "You are not worthy. Let me give you some pointers. One move is sufficient to defeat you." Arrogant. I want to see how incredible the Holy Land's people are. When Yi Fan heard this, he became slightly angry. He placed his right hand on his sword hilt and drew it with a schwa sound. He brandished his sword, and in an instant, he sent out thousands of sword lights at Luo Li like a torrential storm. The sword images flickered and the wind howled. Every strand of sword light contained a trace of cold chi. When there were thousands of sword lights, there were thousands of strands of cold chi. The temperature of the arena immediately plummeted. The surface of the arena, which was infused with frost iron, was soon covered in a layer of ice. This is the Flowing Cloud Sect's Ice Sword Shadow, a peak Earth-ranked martial technique. I did not expect this Elon to have practiced it to small perfection. He can send out thousands of sword lights in an instant. The sword chi covered in the state of ice is not easy to break. An elder leading the Misty Sword Sect's team commented from the platform. The Misty Sword Sect of the Great Qi Nation was an expert in using the sword. Their understanding of sword techniques was definitely higher than everyone else's. Everyone nodded to themselves at his comment. The only sword monarch present, Feng Shuani, also felt that this sword shadow was not easy to break. Although Yi Fan had not comprehended the state of ice, the ice on the ground showed that his understanding of ice was very close to that of state. When a Phoenix's Passion Palace's elder Yin saw all this, he smiled faintly. He was not worried at all. He thought to himself, if I can't even break this sword technique, then why did I call Luo Li out to embarrass himself? When Luo Li saw the ice sword shadow filling the sky, the corner of his lips curled up. He revealed a mocking expression. You have not even comprehended the state of ice, and you are not embarrassed to come out and embarrass yourself. Melt. After Luo Li spoke, a ring of red flames appeared under his feet. The flames rose up from his feet and circled around his body. Finally, they formed a fiery red, vermilion bird image. Z. A heat wave invisible to the naked eye spread out from Ro Li's body. The ice on the ground was instantly evaporated into water vapor. After a while, the ice sword shadow slowly melted in the air. When it was 10 meters away from Luo Li, the cold chi on the ice sword shadow had all evaporated into steam. With the disappearance of the cold chi, the ice sword shadow was completely broken. All the ice sword shadow automatically dissipated in the air. Everyone in the spectators' stands had their mouths agape. They had never imagined that the thousands of sword shadows would be broken so easily. Everyone thought that the ice sword shadow would not be able to injure Luo Li. However, they did not expect him to break it without even making a move. Feng Shuani suddenly understood. He muttered, "One has not even comprehended a state, while the other has comprehended the state of fire to great perfection." Furthermore, He has the support of an ancient divine beast martial spirit. They are on completely different levels. Boundless steam spread out in the arena, covering Luo Li's figure like a mist. Huchi. The steam filled the air, and a fiery red figure soared into the sky. Then, he turned into a beam of red light and flew rapidly towards Yifan. Pan. While Luo Li was in the air, before he got close, he sent out a palm strike. When the palm wind struck the air, it gave off a boundless roar and formed an intense chi tornado. Flames surged out from the chi tornado. In an instant, the force of Luo Li's palm strike brought out a large flaming tornado. The flaming tornado formed a strange formation in the air. It vaguely looked like the silhouette of a vermilion bird. While this palm strike looked simple, it was actually very profound. When Yifan saw the flaming tornado in the sky, his expression changed drastically. He placed 2 fingers on the bottom of his sword and quickly slid upwards. Every time his fingers slid upwards, the light on the sword became brighter. When his fingers slid past the tip of the sword, a boundlessly resplendent sword light soared into the sky. The sword light was 30 meters long and extremely sharp. Its aura was vast and mighty, trying to scatter all the flames in the sky. Suddenly, Luo Li shouted in the air. The vermilion bird martial spirit above his dantian immediately gave off a melodious cry. A strand of holy might shot at Yifan at lightning speed. The vast holy might caused the martial spirit in Yifan's body to tremble involuntarily. His essence immediately became unstable. The incomparably sharp sword light immediately showed signs of loosening. That incomparably sharp aura disappeared without a trace in an instant. Chapter 355. It's over, Yifan thought in horror as his complexion paled. He felt like he had fallen into an abyss. Bang! The flaming tornado instantly scattered Yifan's sword light, which had lost its sharpness. The horrifying energy struck Yifan's body without holding anything back. Yifan vomited a large mouthful of blood in the air as he was flung high into the air. His skin was already char-black. Just at this moment, a figure broke through the flames and ruthlessly smashed a palm strike on Yifan's chest. Yifan's injuries worsened as he vomited another mouthful of blood. His body fell outside the arena. When the boundless flames scattered, only an unharmed Luo Li remained in the arena, standing proudly. I said I would defeat you in one move, so I will defeat you in one move. Next, Luo Li's cold and arrogant voice resounded throughout the drill grounds. Under the blazing sun, the originally bustling drill grounds fell deathly silent. No one said a word. Luo Li thought in horror as he watched the heavily injured and unconscious Yifan being carried away by the flowing cloud sect elders. How is this still an exchange of moves? Xiao Chun frowned slightly. This person was too ruthless. If he could not withdraw the flames, then he did not even need to use the final palm strike. However, this person still attacked. It was clear that he wanted to beat the other party half to death, showing no mercy. After the crowd fell silent for a while, another person came down to challenge. There were always people who were confident in their strength. Enduring 10 moves did not seem too difficult. Once they passed, they might be able to enter the Holy Land. At that time, they might become as strong as the other party. This person was slightly stronger than Yifan. He had already comprehended the state of wind to small perfection. He managed to endure 9 moves after much difficulty. Luo Li was slightly injured and exhausted a lot of his essence. However, he still had most of his strength. He thought joyfully, I just need to endure one more move. However, Luo Li smiled coldly. He unleashed the holy might of his ancient martial spirit again. His opponent's martial spirit trembled, and his essence became unstable. An opening appeared, and he was sent flying in the final move. You can't even withstand a single blow. Next, you're full of openings. How embarrassing. Scram. Trash wants to enter the Holy Land to cultivate. Go down. For a time, more and more people came down to challenge him. However, all of them were defeated by Ro Li. Some did not even last 5 moves and were directly knocked down. Some managed to endure 9 moves, but Luo Li immediately unleashed the holy might of his vermilion bird martial soul for the final move. Using the might of a divine beast, Xiao Chun caused the other party's martial spirit to tremble and essence to become unstable, forcefully breaking the other party's killing move. Just like that, dozens of people went down. Many of them were outstanding talents from various regions, and their strength could be said to be terrifying. However, none of them could last more than 10 moves against the other party. Furthermore, those who went up were all heavily injured, a tragic sight to behold. Luo Li showed no mercy at all. When Feng Shuani saw this, he found it hard to bear. He said to Elder Yin, "Elder Yin, isn't this threshold a little too strict? Since it is a threshold, can we not use sage might and test it with our strength?" Feng Shuani's words were also what the others were thinking. If they did not use their holy might, there should be at least 10 people who could last 10 moves. However, once Luo Li used the vermilion bird's holy might, he would be unrivaled within the same cultivation realm. Even an inferior grade martial king that was 1 grade higher would not be a match for him. Elder Yin smiled faintly and said, "Everyone, this holy might is actually the most crucial part of the threshold. If one cannot even withstand the holy might, then what is the point of entering our sect? Furthermore, this Luo Li's vermilion bird bloodline is not of the direct line of descent. It is already very diluted. It is not considered much in our sect." When the crowd heard what Elder Yin said, they could not find any reason to refute. Even if they could only keep it in their hearts. Who asked him to control the Holy Land selection? How could they dare to refute him? As the crowd spoke, another disciple in the arena got his internal organs ruptured by Luo Li's palm strike. He vomited blood and rolled off the arena. It was a tragic sight to behold. He was in a sorry state. When one looked carefully, this person was actually the 9th-ranked Li Yuza of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Wind Cloud list. Unexpectedly, he could not last more than 10 moves against Luo Li. The strength of the Holy Land's people is indeed horrifying. Unexpectedly, even the 9th-ranked Li Yuza of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Wind Cloud list could not last more than 10 moves. Many of the cultivators in the spectator stands recognized Li Yuza. They all exclaimed in astonishment. Luo Li looked at this person indifferently and smiled coldly. With such strength, he could be ranked 9th in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's ranking is too worthless. Even trash like him can make it onto the ranking. When many of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples heard this, their faces turned red. They felt humiliated and could not suppress the rage in their hearts. They wanted to jump down and teach this person a lesson. However, when they thought of his strength, they felt helpless. If Senior Brother Morong had not left, this person would not have the chance to be so arrogant, using the might of the Holy Spirit. "This is too much," many of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples said angrily. When Jiang Qi, who was on the platform, heard Luo Li's words, his expression changed as well. Elder Yin smiled and said, "Elder Jiang Qi, don't mind him. Youths always have their sharpness. Don't take it to heart." When Jiang Qi heard Elder Yin siding with Luo Li, he smiled embarrassedly to indicate that it was fine. Then, he looked at Xiao Chun below the platform. After thinking for a while, he said, "Yi Chun, go down and exchange moves with this disciple from the Holy Land. 10 moves will do." 10 moves? In that case, 10 moves, Xiao Chun thought to himself as he looked at Luo Li, who was looking at him mockingly. "Yi Chun, be careful," Lu Ryua said worriedly as she held Xiao Chen's hand under the tea table. Xiao Chun turned his head and glanced at Lu Ryua. There was no fear on his delicate face. He smiled gently and said, "It's fine. He is not a match for me. I can defeat him in 3 moves." "Hu Qi." Xiao Chun slowly stood up and pushed off the ground with his feet. He turned into a purple beam of light and instantly landed on the arena. "It's Yi Chun." Yi Chun came out. "Even without Murong Chong, Yi Chun will definitely take revenge for us." Indeed, how could we forget about Yi Chun? Yi Chun even defeated Murong Chong before. He will definitely be able to last 10 moves. "Yi Chun, don't disappoint us. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples below the arena looked at the white-robed Xiao Chun who had landed on the arena with a calm expression. Their originally powerless hearts became hot-blooded again as they cheered. Their blood had not turned cold yet, and their beating hearts could still burn. When the severely injured Li Yuzi saw Yi Chun appear, he said unyieldingly, "Is he Yi Chun? Recently, I have been hearing this name a lot in the Xia province. He was the one who killed the evil beast on the Black Dragon River. Not only did he kill the black tuna whale that time, he even killed the expert of the older generation, Yu Mingshan, who chased after them. Previously, I heard that there was a youth called Yi Chun wandering around and killing many high-ranked spirit beasts. It looks like he is the one. Now, Yi Chun's name was no longer as obscure as before. He represented the leading figure of the younger generation in the Xia province. In many people's hearts, he was already the second Murong Chong. It could even be said that he had already surpassed Murong Chong. The white-robed Xiao Chun had a calm expression on his face. He turned a deaf ear to the voices around him, unfazed by honor or disgrace. An empty reputation would forever be an empty reputation. There was no need to be anxious or happy. The corner of Luo Li's lips curled up, revealing a mocking expression on his handsome face. He smiled faintly and said, "It looks like you are extraordinarily popular. However, you're just a person from the lower realm. You will never know how high the heavens are. No matter how strong a genius is, they are not even comparable to dog shit in my eyes." Xiao Chun smiled gently and looked at Luo Li calmly. He said, "You are just an unranked disciple of the Holy Land. Don't think that you are a god. In my opinion, you are the one who is looking at the sky from the bottom of a well, not knowing how big the heavens are." Xiao Chen's words seemed to have struck a chord in Luo Li's heart that he could not touch. A trace of anger flashed on Luo Li's face as he said coldly, "I will make you scram off this arena within 3 moves. Is that so? I seem to have promised someone to defeat you within 3 moves." Xiao Chun smiled gently. Luo Li's expression turned sullen as he snorted coldly. "Arrogant!" Boom! Luo Li shouted, and a scarlet flame immediately soared up from his feet. It circled around and formed the image of a vermilion bird behind him. Then he sent out a palm strike. The wind in the air exploded. The force of this palm strike blasted out countless intense cyclones. Flames soared in the cyclones, forming many 100-meter-tall, flaming tornadoes in the blink of an eye. The rings of flames of various sizes formed a strange formation in the air. From a distance, it looked like the rough outline of a vermilion bird. It was this move again. Many experts from before had fallen to this move. Xiao Chun used the power of the vermilion bird to create a destructive force that could sweep away all obstacles. Xiao Chun's eyes lit up, and his expression was resolute. He placed his right hand on the lunar shadow saber and drew his saber at lightning speed just as the flaming tornadoes were about to hit him. Rumble! Suddenly, thunder roared in the calm sky. Purple lightning tore through the air and infused into the lunar shadow saber. The snow-white saber immediately flickered with a purple light. Xiao Chun moved forward at lightning speed and hacked down. The saber passed right through the center of the vermilion bird's head. He wanted to break the power of this move with this saber strike. The sharp saber strike contained the purest state of thunder. Everywhere the saber light passed, it tore through everything. Pusii! Everyone in the drill ground seemed to hear the mournful cry of a vermilion bird in their minds. Then, the flaming tornadoes and the layers of horrifying tornadoes shattered. The scattered flaming tornadoes blew wildly in the surroundings, blasting the 4 fences of the arena until only 4 lonely pillars remained. The pillars were charred black. Kasie! Kasie! After that, the 4 pillars shattered piece by piece. Unexpectedly, they were all charred from the inside out. This showed how tyrannical the power of this flame was. Seeing Xiao Chun easily break the martial technique that Luo Li was so proud of, countless people thought to themselves, "Good." When Luo Li saw his proud martial technique, the flaming phoenix chain burst, being broken in the most direct and decisive manner. His expression changed slightly. Luo Li pushed off the ground and soared into the air. The vermilion bird image behind him flapped its wings gently. As the vermilion bird flapped its wings, Luo Li's aura started to soar. Soon, it reached its peak, and his state of fire reached its peak.